Meaning to, her eyes and thoughts turn to the kid, then to Duet. Surely they would understand. Is it not better that some of them survive? Suddenly she remembers her father's hands, always there to pick her up, never letting go. She cannot let go. Not now. Legs already tiring, she continues to kick. On her back, the sword begins to hum. Where its eye looks, tainted clouds of ocean clear, opening a pathway to cleaner waters. Silvered wings beat gently, finding purchase in currents invisible. Slowly at first, they ascend, getting faster as wings find their rhythm. Numb fingers grip poorly, Vesper seeing rather than feeling Duet slip away. She tries to hold on, her hand sliding down Duet's bracer, catching on the heel of the other's hand. Their growing speed makes it harder. It is only a matter of time before she is lost. Vesper closes her eyes momentarily. She stops kicking, trusting to the sword entirely, and wraps her legs under Duet's arms. Tirelessly, the sword drags them up until light brushes red and gold around them, and biting cold becomes only cool. Vesper's head breaks the surface. She looks round and sees grey sand close by. An eye also sees it. Humming subsides, wings stop their work, folding once more about the sword. An eye closes. Vesper's head dips below the water. With frantic kicks, she makes towards the land, not bothering to go up. Shortly, her feet touch rising rock, and she manages to stand. With wobbling steps, she makes her way towards the island. Rock mixes with sand, dragging at feet, but Vesper keeps going. She lies to herself. Just one more step. Believing just enough to struggle on. She drags Duet as far as she can before dropping an arm and falling to her knees. It is only when she places the kid upon the sand that she appreciates how still he has become. Vesper puts her hands flat on the sand, closes her eyes. The sword is heavy on her back. Her arms quiver with fatigue. A tear squeezes out, dropping onto the inside of her mask. She takes a deep breath, then another. She shrugs out of her coat and unbuckles the sword, placing the latter on top of the former. She crawls to the kid, breaking the rubbery dome around his head, and wipes the last of the blue residue from cold lips. Shaking hands push on the kid's stomach. Air is blown into the kid's mouth. He responds quickly. The first cough is delicate, the second less so. Suddenly the kid is standing upright, belching out coloured water onto the beach. By the time he is finished, Vesper is asleep. The kid bleats at her, then tries nudging her with his head. The girl groans a little, but otherwise doesn't move. The kid looks at her for a while, then at the unfamiliar territory. A conclusion is reached. The kid turns on the spot and settles next to the girl, his chin resting on her stomach. The little head rises and falls like the waves, regular and slow. Samael climbs up the old metal hill. He is careful not to look towards the breach. An instinct keeps his gaze on the dented, rusty floor. A part of him is afraid to look, knows that he will not be able to unsee whatever waits for him. Somehow it will be easier to bear when he has resumed his customary watching post. He plants his feet where he always plants them, enjoying the feeling of belonging. In this place he is rooted. He does not understand why this is, does not care to. Grounded now, ready, he raises his head. 4 infernal factions race towards the breach. As expected, the fell runners cannot be matched in pace, their weeping legs flashing underneath them like an army of sticks, a never-tangling mess of movement. Hangnail is close behind, running with inhuman speed, casual. Next to the rolling, ugly gait of Gutterface, the others appear almost elegant. The backwards child brings up the rear. Unable to run, it is carried on the back of a huge usurperkin, a twisted pimple on a lumbering mountain. At last, Samael lifts his gaze further, taking in the horizon and the breach itself. Without meaning to, he takes a step backwards. If anything, the yearning has grown in his absence. A sizable section of the breach is blocked by its ephemeral form, a roiling cloud of yellow and green, a slice of otherness, a seed trying to plant itself in hostile soil. Where reality is weak, the yearning spreads out, expanding into spaces defined by currents of essence, mapping out the lines between this world and the impossible. Where realities blur, the yearning pushes, its essence smoking under the glare of the broken suns. Along the border, the yearning burns, fossilizing into crystal, forming trees, strange and star-like. This forest sprouts in the ground and the sky with equal felicity, drawing in the good air and breathing out something else. The fell runners are the first to reach the unearthly forest. Samael watches as their lord plunges between the glassy trunks, leaping and sailing over bubbling earth. By the fourth of these leaps, something begins to change, a distortion of distance, a stretching. Samael leans forward to better understand. Lord Fellrunner's head seems to be streaking ahead of its many legs, body and neck stretching to accommodate. The other Fellrunners hesitate, only to find that it is not just their legs carrying them forward. As they scrabble back, their lord rushes on, like a piece of elastic stretched suddenly over many miles, then gone. Samael's half-breed eyes just catch the last glimmer of Lord Fellrunner's essence, a thin ribbon of ash falling upward, fading. Unmade. Unwilling to follow their lord any longer, unable to stop, the Fellrunners slide towards their end, undignified. The glassy trunks catch their reflections, changing them. Samael cannot make out the images, and for that he is glad. Those that can turn away and make for home, save the backwards child, for even in retreat it is ever cursed to be looking where it should not. Only the backwards child and Samael see the fell runners stretching, essence pushing out through their shells, shredding them. Where the monsters once ran stand a gaggle of new essence trees, thin, reedy things like stalks of long grass, fragile straws standing high on an abundance of frozen limbs. From each hangs a bag of flesh, suspended in the air, a flag of defeat. Waves lap at Duet's boots. She remains as she was left, one arm raised by her head, pointing randomly. Above, the suns orbit each other, circling slowly towards the horizon. Vesper sits nearby, feeding the kid. Next to her, the sword sleeps. When the feeding is done, the kid totters along the beach. He doesn't go far, and looks back often, bleating until acknowledgement is given. Vesper lies down by the sword, her nose in line with the crosspiece. She watches it for a long time. Not quite daring to touch the hilt, she rests a hand on the sheath. The sword does not react. She stays like that a while, then mouths a silent thank you. A booted foot twitches, splashing weakly. Vesper sits up to see Duet doing the same. Where are we? Vesper waves to the kid, who begins to race back. I don't know. What happened? She begins to tell her of horrors half glimpsed under the water and the fight for survival. Before she can finish, the kid stumbles sideways, comic, then falls over. 4 legs scurry in the air, and the kid makes an unhappy noise. He struggles to his feet, standing at a dangerous angle, and barely makes 2 strides before tottering, falling again. Duet sounds tired. What now? Vesper gets up stiffly, like a woman many years her senior, and rushes over. He ate some of those tabs. I don't know how many. And he swallowed a lot of water. We should have left it behind. Don't say that. I'm just... She pauses, jerking upright, her sentence ending in a strangled gurgle. The quality of the sound stops Vesper in her tracks. She looks back in time to see Duet pull off her visor and bend forward. Her mouth turns down as Duet vomits repeatedly onto the beach. Hisses of pain accompany the ejections, and her hand moves to her side, involuntary, drawing attention to impressions left by the first's fist. Afterwards, she sips a little water while Vesper gathers the kid in her arms. When she is done, she finds the girl staring. Immediately, her face hardens. What is it? Vesper blinks. Sorry, it's just I've never seen your face before. And? She looks again at the harmonized features. Only the knights and the lenses are permitted to grow their hair. Duet is neither. Stubble dusts her scalp, dark and severe. Something about her nose seems wrong, her ears too, though Vesper cannot see why. The microsurgery's too subtle to leave scarring. Well, I didn't think you'd be so young. All harmonized are. They sink us from birth. What happens when you get old? We die? She shrugs. They never said. I never asked. For a while, neither speaks. Vesper draws idly in the sand. It's getting dark. We need to find shelter. Duet doesn't look at her. Do we? Of course we do. We need to rest somewhere safe so we can get going in the morning. Why? For the mission, of course. The mission is over. We have no transport, no troops, no support. We're dead. She pauses her doodling, leaving a knight half sketched. We still have the sword, and each other. A baby goat, a child, and... Duet searches for the words to describe herself, falls to mutterings. We're dead. I'm not much younger than you. 5 years at the most. 10 is closer. 10 then. It doesn't matter. You still believe in the sword, don't you? Do you? Yes. Liar. I watched you in Sonorous. Vesper looks away. The sword didn't speak to you there. It didn't ask for me, did it? Duet nods grimly at Vesper's silence. She was right about you. Vesper's head remains bowed. Who was? Me. Her. In silence, Vesper collects her things and walks towards the pockmarked cliffs. Red light glints on Duet's abandoned visor, then makes way for dazzling gold. One of the suns has already dipped below the horizon, the other not far behind. Duet sighs, a long and bitter thing, and levers herself upright. Waves creep stealthily up the beach, each time a little higher, harrying the harmonized as she limps after the girl. Vesper begins to climb. The rocks are moist, too soft, like clay. Where she scrabbles, long spined things as big as a fingernail flee the disturbance, seeking new holes to inhabit. The kid bounds ahead, treating sheer walls like gentle pathways. Vesper, finding a hollow halfway up, climbs in with the kid, huddling together for warmth. When Duet arrives, the front of her armour smeared in mud, Vesper smiles, but she doesn't join them, sitting as far apart as space allows, shivering, alone. Clouds roll across the sky, bullied along by a growing wind. Foam-capped waves strike the cliffs, coating them in crust, glistening. The kid hops onto the top of the cliff, his dark eyes expressionless as he takes in the view. Behind him comes Vesper, determined expression glimpsed through mud-streaked hair crusted with salt. Last comes Duet, grunting and cursing with each movement, her usual grace abandoned. Vesper lets her catch her breath before speaking. "Have you taken any tabs today?" "I took 2. 2? I thought you were only supposed to take 1. I took 2. Then this is the best time to have a look at your injury." "You're no surgeon." "Don't be scared. I just want to look." "I am scared of infection." "The sword will protect us from taint." She holds up the bag. "And I've got gel for everything else." Begrudgingly, Duet agrees, and they find a sheltered spot, a dip in the ground where two-tone flowers grow, and bushes with leaves like antlers. She takes off the chest plate. Its original contours have been distorted by many dents. Underneath is a thin layer of padding, smart-adjusting to temperature changes, shock-absorbing. Beneath the spot the first hit hardest, blood dries in a ragged oval. At Vesper's insistence, she peels the padding back too, wincing as fabric tears itself from fresh scabbing. Pale skin makes bruises stark. Together they tell of multiple strikes, fist-sized. Vesper smears them with anti-inflammatory gel, getting the easy part out of the way. "What is it?" Vesper bites her lip. "It's so swollen here. I'm not sure if the bone is broken." "Do you know what to do?" Duet's voice carries an edge of nerves. "Not really. I mean, I've set legs before, but never ribs." She doesn't mention if the legs are human or animal. Duet scowls, but doesn't protest when the girl starts work. She plugs the newly torn scabs with fresh skein, dabbing the thick paste on with her fingers like an artist. The flexicast comes next, which appears like a long, thin sack of liquid until activated. She wraps it around Duet's ribs, adjusting it for size. When it is snug, she lets go, and the liquid solidifies, moulding itself to Duet's body, supporting but limiting flexibility. "How's that?" "Better." Vesper beams at her. For Duet, indeed for many citizens of the Empire of the Winged Eye, smiles do not come naturally. With pain gone, tension soon departs, making room for fatigue. Before she realizes it, the harmonized has fallen asleep in the soft earth. While she dreams, Vesper's smile vanishes. "We have to be strong for Duet," she says to the kid, scratching behind his ear. "Even if we don't feel very strong. I wish—" She pauses, sighs. "I wish I knew what to say to her. And I wish Father was here, or Uncle Harm. They'd know what to do." She meets the kid's gaze. Duet's wound looked bad, didn't it? The kid's eyes appear bleak. Vesper sighs again. It would be easy to give up, to throw herself from the cliff or just curl up in a ball and cry, but she allows herself neither, haunted by the sound of swords shattering and the look in Genna's eyes. He died for her, along with countless others. It would be the worst insult to fail them now. She starts with something small, manageable, and tries to knock out the dents in Duet's chestplate. She moves a discreet distance away, picks up a rock, and begins to hammer. Sometimes she holds it up in front of the kid, encouraging him to kick. Girl and goat play happily. Old dents are popped back, new ones made. Throughout, Duet and the sword sleep. When Duet wakes, they share some rations, and Vesper consults the nav pack. It tells them they are on the mainland. It is wrong. Ignorant of the floods or the quakes that have changed the landscape in the years since the lenses kept accurate records of the South. No skyships dare fly this airspace, and the eyes that watched the world from above have long been closed, dead spheres circling the heavens, endless, hopeless. Several settlements are nearby, all marked with unknown or hostile status. This far south there are no flags of the Empire of the Winged Eye, no safe havens, no friends. "I'm not sure which way to go." "We need supplies." Vesper scans settlement names, searching for the familiar. What about Wonderland? That doesn't sound too bad. Uncle talked about it. "You surprise me." What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. What did he say? He said it was dangerous, but so were all the places in his stories. Do you remember anything? Anything! That's it. He said that in Wonderland you could get anything. Anything at all. So I'm sure we'll be able to get supplies there. "This way," she says, jumping up with an enthusiasm she doesn't feel. The kid echoes the motion, and the two set off. Duet follows with a different demeanour, a balance to their brightness. They make their way down a gentle slope, the kid naturally finding the safest way. The terrain is soft rock in places, wet dirt in others. Grass grows in patches, irregular, like the scalp of a balding man. Wind tugs at the girl's coat, ruffles hair. As the view of the south presents itself, Vesper slows. She shines the nav-pack on the floor, compares the map it draws with what stands before her. Uh-oh. Where land is expected, there are more waves, and beyond them, distant but visible, a second coastline. She puts the nav-pack away, pulls up the old scope, and puts it to her eye. In places the water is shallow, and she sees shapes beneath it, shadows of rooftops, tubes trying to float, suspended below the surface by stubborn cables. She sets off, keen to explore. Duet struggles to match her pace, going just fast enough to keep her in sight, but no more. At Land's End, kid and girl skid to a stop. There is no beach here, just rock and grass dipping into water. Vesper extends out a leg, lowers her foot carefully. It goes in up to the ankle, then the knee, before finding purchase on a roof. Goosebumps appear all over the girl, and she bites a knuckle to stop from squealing. Then she leans forward, testing the roof with more and more of her weight. It holds. Vesper wades across, coat turning up, floating around her knees. The kid bleats, making her turn. "Come on, it's safe." The kid bleats again and backs away from the edge. "It's cold, but you'll be fine. Come on." The kid sits down. Duet works her way down to them. She too stops at the water's edge. "Come on," Vesper calls. "We need to cross while it's still light." "There's no other way?" "I don't know. Nowhere nearby, anyway." Teeth are gritted, hidden behind the visor, and Duet steps onto the submerged platform. Water splashes nearby grass and kid, making both wet and one bleat derisively. "Can you bring him in?" asks Vesper. Duet complies, reaching back to grab the kid by the neck. Before the kid can panic, Duet throws him out into the water. Vesper's eyes follow the flailing arc. For such a small creature, the splash is impressive. The kid vanishes beneath the surface. There are bubbles, then a tiny explosion as he reappears, spitting, glaring at the harmonized. "I didn't know they could swim." "All goats can," Vesper replies. "They hate it, though." She retrieves the kid, scooping the sodden creature out of the water, wobbling, then getting her balance. They press on, moving slowly, wading from roof to roof. Some buildings peek from the water, worn heads sparkling in the afternoon sun's light. Others lurk deep, forcing them to half-swim, tiptoeing at full stretch to make progress. Vesper chatters breathlessly, alternating between encouraging the others and pointing out interesting shapes in the water. Anything to keep Duet moving, anything rather than think about the burden on her back or the consequences of what she has done. Time passes, deceptive, evening arriving before its welcome. More than half the crossing remains. Duet holds up a hand. "Do you always talk this much?" Vesper's face creases in thought. "I always talk when there are animals around. They find it soothing." Duet mutters. "I find it tiring." But the girl doesn't hear her. "My uncle likes to talk. He says talking is a way of getting things out, like airing a barn, but instead of a barn, it's like airing yourself. That wasn't exactly what he said, but I think that's what he meant. My uncle's good with words." She chatters on, determinedly good-natured, as they slow race the suns to the coastline. There is no real contest. The suns reach the finish long before the people do, allowing darkness to spread. Stars peek between rushing clouds, offering little illumination. Vesper has her hands full with the kid, so they rely on the light from Duet's visor to guide them. As night deepens, their world shrinks down, defined by the width of the torch beam and jigsaw memories of what surrounds it. They move carefully, splashing, mindful of cracks stretching underfoot. Then, 50 meters from the loom of the coast, the buildings stop. Duet sweeps the beam methodically, searching, finding nothing of substance. From further off, they hear a cackle and a voice, rough.
"You won't find nothing down there. Nope, nothing."
Duet looks up, adjusts her gaze until the light catches a small squatting shape across the water. He covers his face with spindly arms.
"Get your bugger-finding bling out of me eyes, damn you!"
Duet dips her gaze fractionally, keeping the edge of her light by the stranger's feet.
"Better?"
Thin arms cross.
"Better if you'd not come at all."
Vesper speaks quickly, intercepting Duet's reply. Please, we've been travelling all day and we're tired. Is there a way to get across?
Might be. Might be I can show it to you. Might be I can help you after and all.
We just need help across, thanks.
That all, is it? You sound like a stripling. You from the soft north?
Yes, replies Vesper, a moment before Duet's elbow finds her ribs. She looks at the harmonised, reproachful, but Duet's attention is on the stranger. Don't say too much. We don't know him. The stranger clears his throat.
How much you want to cross, then?
We want to cross very much. We need to.
What? You been slapped in the head?
A little bit. Vesper receives another cackle.
Yes, yes, you gonna be needing me all right. Yes, you is. I'm not giving a dry spit how you is feeling. I wants to know what you giving old Churner to be saving you.
This time, Duet is the first to speak. We don't need saving.
Don't you now? Way I sees it, you stuck out there in the darky cold. You tired and empty. You got big bling on your head that will draw all the flies here, and there's lots of 'em prowling tonight.
Vesper nudges Duet. I think we'll have to deal. Duet frowns behind her visor. He's trouble. Probably. But what choice do we have? The frown becomes fiercer. We'll regret this. Vesper turns back to the man across the water. We've got medicine we could trade.
What kind?
Pain meds, stims, soothers, and lots more. Churner's toes wriggle with excitement.
Well, if you've got the pills, I got the ills. I wants 2 handfuls, 1 for each of you.
Duet shakes her head, making the beam sweep wide to the left and right. You'll get 1. Churner stands up.
2, or old Churner goes across the ways and finds some hungry flies and tells them all about you.
2, Vesper blurts. You can have 2.
2 big handfuls? No tricks?
No tricks.
Right then. You sees that tall building over there?
Duet turns her light, following where Churner points. The beam picks out a rusting arm, jutting 10 metres into the air like a giant's finger, crooked. Yes?
You get over there and I'll be waiting, and I'll be letting you into a little secret.
They turn away, trying to find a route through the dark waters.
And go quicky, smarts. Won't be long before the flies get your stink, and then they be crawling all over here and all over you.
Chapter 9. Essence pulses unseen across the world, spiderwebbing light that grows thick over the southern continent, linking 100 heads. There is a single moment of cohesion, the bittersweet taste of old majesty, and then the first becomes fragmented again. Unprotected essence is burned by the angry suns, diminished by the hate of the world as it retreats back into its many shells. The first feels a terrible pain, lingering far longer than the instant of bliss that preceded. The first accepts the trade, considers it worthwhile. Gradually, the burning subsides, allowing the first to take action. From its many hiding places it speaks, and rumours spread like a sudden rain. The malice is returning. The malice is vulnerable. The one who ends the malice can name their award, and the first will grant it. Responses are varied and instant. The hungry dispossessed at the north end of the landmass lick their lips and sharpen their sticks. Across the flatlands, usurper-kin tribes compete with mottled walkers and pug packs, boasting and posturing. In Verdigris, the news has to compete with the sudden onset of plague, but those in power share knowing looks, and guards start double shifts at the gate. Word even reaches New Horizon. In the high courts of the demagogue, many sweat, suddenly insecure in their seats of power. Inevitably, news trickles through the rotten city, passed from slaves to spies and gossips, spreading like a virus. Soon, a hopeful takes the news to the Iron Mountain, looking to swap the information for something more tangible. He trades with Dr. Zero, who pays him well. When the man has gone, Dr. Zero adds another scar to the white crisscrosses on his hands and whispers into the blood that beads there. Flies come, drinking deep of Zero's message before flying further south, where even the first does not care to go, where land blisters and air quakes, where fallen palaces lay, and beyond that, where madness spits in the eye of sanity and demons run, fearful. A thin ridge of metal skirts the old tower. Because the structure leans, part of the ridge dips below the water level, part of it rises above, although regular waves cover all when they come. Vesper and Duet balance on it, clinging to scaffolding that pokes from the structure like rusting bone. Teeth chatter, as much from exhaustion as cold. Do you think he's coming? I doubt it. But why bother to bring us out here at all? It's a better place for an ambush. With her ear pressed to the tower's side, Vesper cannot help but hear it creak. The groaning speaks of age, of wear, and of imminent collapse. The wind tugs at them, chilling wet clothes, nipping at skin beneath. Vesper starts to go numb, imagines herself turning blue, save for the oasis of warm where the kid presses on her chest. After what seems too long, Churner crawls into view.
Hurry up,
snaps Duet.
Quiet,
hisses Churner.
Keep your great gob shut and lower your bling. I sees the prowlers are out and they is not far.
Duet turns off the beam. With a satisfied grunt, Churner gets to work. Pulleys squeak and squeal like children, noisy, and the crooked tower tries to straighten. It does not get all the way, but enough for slick cables to rise from the depths, making a quivering line from the tower to the coast. They tie themselves on with halting, trembling fingers, fumbling their way in the dark. Brave feet lift from the tower, trusting to the ancient cable. It sways, but holds. From the other side, Churner works the engineless winch by hand. As he sweats and strains, Duet is dragged across in uneven bursts, heels skimming the wave-tops. Vesper and the kid follow. Their progress is faster, if not smoother. On the other side, the kid is keen for a reunion with dry land. Vesper drops him, and he quickly vanishes into the dark.
You is getting my pills now.
Vesper holds out the bag while Churner releases the winch and lowers it back into the water. He turns back to the girl, raising his large hands.
Kept these beasties to myself till we'd made our deal. Old Churner's no fool, no fool. You is giving me a little bling to pick by. Just in the bag, mind. Don't want no prowlers sniffing us.
Duet complies, the light catching on many different coloured tabs and treatments. Churner's mouth opens with delight, a grim hole with few teeth. Any sense of haste fades away, and the man runs his fingers over the contents of the bag, signalling his approval with a series of animal grunts. When he is done, the bag is notably lighter.
"Goodbye,"
says Duet, already walking away. Churner chuckles, making her stop.
"Something funny?"
You is going the wrong way. Very exposed that way. You'd be easy pickings going that way. I know another path. A little sneaky, twisty thing it is. Much better."
How much? Asks Vesper.
"I fancy a munch on that little morsel you has."
My what?
"It's a trotsy one, all juiceful and tender."
Realization dawns.
"No!"
"Shh!"
Vesper lowers her voice. Sorry, you can't have my goat.
"I don't need all of him. Just some ribs or a couple of legs."
No. Churner sniffs.
"What about his tongue? You not wanting the stringy old tongue, you wasting that. Give it to me and I gets you on a safe road."
Duet nods. No. No deal. We'll give you some of our rations. The agreement is made in a flurry of quick whispers, and the group go on their way. Churner leads them across the coast to a crack in the cliffs, just wide enough for one. They slip through to find it opening up, becoming a rocky path winding inland. A stream draws a line down its centre. It remains too risky to rest, and tired limbs are marshalled for one last march. Through the night they go, until Duet's light brushes over cords, tiny, casting shadows the path's width.
"What's this?"
"Stop!"
Churner says, forgetting his earlier caution.
"Oh, blood and spit! Oh, bugger and shitholes!"
What is it?
"Tingle traps. Touch one and they'll be all over us."
Duet's voice is quiet, dangerous.
"Where's that goat?"
3 heads turn as one, finding the kid a little way ahead. He has already crossed the first trapline without incident, standing poised by another. Feeling the sudden attention, he turns back and bleats, innocent.
"Stay there,"
says Vesper softly.
"That's it. Stay there."
The kid bleats again, head drawn to the sound of the girl's voice. He trots a few paces towards them.
"No. Stop!"
The kid pauses, head tilted and quizzical. Vesper holds her hands out in front of her, fingers spread. Slowly she moves towards the kid, mindful to step over the cord.
"I'm coming to you. Stay there. Stay there."
Duet's hand goes to her sword, ready. Churner shuffles from one foot to the other. Vesper reaches the kid, goes to scoop him up, but the kid has other ideas, scampering back out of reach.
"Oh, come on,"
Vesper mutters. Then, more sweetly,
"Come on. I've got some milk for you."
The kid stops, watching keenly as Vesper produces the special bottle. Without another word, he scampers over. Relieved, they start to cross the second trap. From deeper in the darkness, a single pair of hands applaud, mocking.
"Thanks for saving our supper, girl. But don't sweat too much. We wouldn't want you to get lean."
Duet draws her sword and lights up the dark. 6 figures lurk on the edge of the beam, eyes narrowed against the glare. They look desperate, dangerous, Their scavenged weapons are crude, scraps of metal or tools repurposed, in the right hands deadly. These hands are stained by a lifetime of murder, animal and otherwise. From behind them, more hunters scrabble down the rock, blocking escape. The kid sneezes. Vesper pulls out the gun.
"What's this, Churner?" says their leader. "You trying to keep the bounty all to yourself?"
The old man throws himself at the leader's feet.
No, Licey. I was bringing them safe and soft this way so I could share them with you. Don't want no others whetting their teeth on our meat, do we?"
The leader steps forward, revealing herself, an angry ripcord swathed in strips of cloth.
"And what else have you brought us?"
"Is this not plentiful?"
"No."
She kicks him and he whimpers, quickly producing a treasure of tablets in cupped hands.
"Very nice, Churner. Very nice."
While she talks, the other hunters stalk closer, a circle, tightening. Duet can wait no longer. She spins to the ones nearest her, blade flicking out. Instinctively they lean away, flailing their own weapons in her general direction, and only the tip of her sword finds them. It is enough. Throats open, singing red songs, and while they gape like pale fish, she kills another. But the hunters are hard, and little surprises them for long. They close in, surrounding her, striking always when her back is turned, opportunistic. She twirls and strikes, parries and thrusts, moving in a way these people have never seen. Vesper watches, the gun shaking in her hand. She points it towards the melee, not quite firing as the figures pass through her line of fire.
"Stop!"
she calls out, raising the gun for emphasis. She is ignored. Perhaps they don't believe her. Perhaps they simply cannot see the weapon in the dark. The fight begins to turn. The hunters pit numbers and experience against Duet's speed and training. She is too fast for them, but they are in no hurry to die, keeping her on the edge of their sticks, taking turns, forcing her always to turn towards the next threat. And sometimes her training fails her. She fights as if she is not alone, making openings for a ghost that never strikes, realizing too late that no partner has her back. Fatigue and injury play their part too. A stick stabs into her side, easily turned by her armour. Then another, rattling wounds. She gasps in pain, pausing for the briefest time. Sensing weakness, the hunters attack. Duet cannot stop them all. She drops her sword, curling into an armoured ball. Blows rain down, furtive at first, testing, but growing bolder. Vesper points the gun, squeezing eyes and trigger at the same time. Angry light lances out, briefly illuminating faces, shocked. Somehow she misses them all. They gasp and turn towards the new threat, pausing for the briefest time. And Duet has a knife in her hand and is spinning again, slashing tendons as she rises, stabbing under ribs to slow puncture lungs. Several break and run. She stabs them too. As the last hunters flee, their leader, Licey, leaps towards Vesper, who fires, catching the woman mid-leap, burning a line across the outside of her thigh. Then her hands are on Vesper's wrists, forcing them up, twisting, trying to steal the weapon. Vesper struggles, and the kid runs a few steps away, then faints, falling sideway with straight legs. The woman is not much taller than the girl, but she is far stronger and more brutal. In moments, Vesper lays curled on the floor, and Licey has the gun. She turns it toward Duet, who is doggedly trying to kill as many as she can before they can escape. Without warmth, Licey smiles and pulls the trigger. Nothing happens. Licey tries again, and the gun begins to hum off-key. She grunts in surprise, and veins pop to attention across her face. The hum continues, sound wavering as the gun quivers in her grip. Muscles in her hand spasm first, then her arm and shoulder. Soon all are straining to breaking point, violent, relentless, shaking her until teeth chip at each other and her heart pops. 14 long seconds later, Lacey is dead. Too late, Vesper covers her face. She cannot pluck out what she has seen, cannot wash it away with tears. As the dust settles, Churner starts to crawl away, keeping low, unobtrusive. Duet's boots soon fill his vision. She has her sword back now. Your turn.
Don't be doing in old Churner. I's helping you. I's showing you secret ways and I's giving you a safe path.
This wasn't safe.
Safer than the way you was trying to go.
He sees her sword start to rise and changes tack.
We'll help you more, show you best ways, and I's stashing many treasures. You would like to be seeing them, you would.
We've had enough of your help. We don't need anything from you.
Vesper chimes in. It's not his fault. They were going to kill him too. I doubt it. But they hurt him and stole from him. He wouldn't want that. Please don't do anything to him. Duet's sword hovers above Churner's head.
If we let him go, he'll sell us out. So will the men that ran away. Killing him isn't going to make a difference.
She sheathes her sword. We'll regret this.
Oh no, you is wise and generous. I is remembering this. Oh yes,
He pauses as Duet scoops the tablets out of his hands.
What is you doing?
We traded for a safe path you didn't deliver.
Vesper opens her mouth to speak, but Duet silences her with a look and points to the gun in Lacey's cold grip. Trying not to sob, she crawls over to the body, breath coming in gasps as she struggles to unpeel fingers, stiff and stubborn. They leave Churner still kneeling in the dirt, a few pills speckling his palms. Vesper looking back at the last moment to mouth a silent apology. Alone, Churner starts to mutter.
I is remembering this. Oh yes, I is remembering this.
The night passes. One sleeps while the other watches, taking turns, dividing the dark. The kid leaves them to it, soft snores unbroken. In the morning they continue. The valley ends in a rough set of natural stairs, uneven, tilting things hewn from the rock by powerful forces. Upon seeing them, the kid begins to bounce. Duet scowls. What's wrong with it? Vesper shrugs. Hooves click on stony ground, drumming, excited, then speeding forward. The girl and the harmonized watch bemused as the kid bounds from one step to the next. Each landing brings a new platform into view, even more tempting than the last. Sometimes the kid makes the jump first time. Sometimes legs flail in the air before plopping down again. To the kid, it doesn't matter. Progress is erratic, but fast. By the time the humans start the climb, the kid is 2/3 of the way up, squeaking and joyful. Exertion soon takes its toll on old wounds. Duet pauses, leaning heavily on the wall. She raises a hand to her visor, letting her head drift down, taking its weight. Grief grumbles from deep within, threatening to wake. She takes a deep breath, swallows, and looks up. Vesper is there, one step above her, hand held out as open as her face.
What?
growls Duet.
Let me help you. I don't need...
Fractionally, Vesper's hand lowers.
I didn't thank you for saving me. And before that, in Sonorous, there were so many of them, and you stood up to them all.
Their eyes meet.
I owe you everything.
Duet's frown trembles. Another deep breath, another swallow. She grabs at Vesper's hand, a quick, rough gesture.
Come on, let's climb.
Together they make their way up. The kid skips down to meet them. Bleats skips up again. At the top, the ground is mercifully flat, and good progress is made. The rocky ground gives way to fields of wild crops. A sudden explosion of life, the giant stalks sprout manically for miles, pale yellow, aspiring to be trees. They plunge inside and fall down onto ground a step lower than expected. Soon the world becomes a series of bending bars, fibrous, bowing to make room for more. An unending vista of gold. Often they stop to check their position with the nav pack and breathe deep of the blue square above their heads. Beneath their feet the soil is thick and dark, rich and squishy. Vesper hears crunching and looks down. Tainted things squirm in the mud, a writhing cluster of cockroach shells. Where the girl's passing has flipped them over, a pink underbelly is revealed, sickeningly soft, featureless. Ahead, the stalks part to reveal the resting place of an old auto-farmer. One of the last. For years its bladed arms have hung still while legions of creatures investigate, making homes among its wires, tucked safe behind plates of steel. Earth and machine blend together, one seeming to grow out of the other. Flowers sprout from its cracked eyes, roots twist about metal toes. Vesper stares at it for a long time. Duet notices. Stops.
What is it?
She smiles.
It's beautiful, don't you think?
No.
How do you know?
You haven't even bothered to look.
Yes, I have.
No, you haven't. She grits her teeth.
This is stupid. Just look. It won't take long. Fine.
She glances at it and mutters agreement, keen to move them on. In places they push the stalks aside, in others they step around them. The kid stays close, sneezing often. Vesper nudges Duet.
What did you think?
Of what?
You know.
Oh, it was...
What?
Different. Different. What little patience there is evaporates away.
What do you want me to say? What do you want from me? It was a broken machine. So what? It won't help us survive. It doesn't even work.
Against all sense of self-preservation, the girl smiles.
Why do you keep staring at me? Oath or no oath, if you don't get that smile off your face, I'll kick it out.
The smile gets broader still. Vesper holds up her hands as Duet advances towards her.
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I'm happy for you. What are you talking about? Make some sense, damn you! Your speech. Since Sonorous has been broken, but now that you're angry with me, you sound natural again.
Duet stops and slumps against the foliage. Thick stalks sway but don't fall. Hands cover a face covered by a visor. She tries to breathe, tries to swallow it down, but this time the grief is too strong. Tears come, thick and fast, misting her visor, misting the world. 1,116 years ago. For years, Masasi roams. She samples food, samples bodies, takes what she wants, breaks what she wants. She is young, angry, and, for the first time, free. Without forcing it, she gets stronger. She sees the light in everyone now, sees their true faces without trying, hears their voices stripped of pretense. People quickly bore her. Each new acquaintance robbed of mystery, just another animal with nothing special to say. Pleasure is pleasure, however, and she enjoys travelling, exploring the contours of the world. Unrendered food is a particular high. Mostly she forgets about the chink in the sky, but as time passes she finds it bothering her more and more. Like a stone in her shoe, it is trivial yet omnipresent. The feelings recede as she travels north, but after a month or two it returns again, and her stomach clenches. At first she tells herself that she notices because she has become sensitized. Then she tells herself it is because her new senses are more powerful now. At last she admits the truth. Whatever is wrong is spreading, getting worse. Perhaps it is boredom that makes her go south. Perhaps it is a late-blooming sense of duty or an itch that demands scratching, but south she goes. Jump boots propel her along, their design an affront to all her old safety regulations. Between them and her glider, she makes quick work of the journey. Masasi arrives at a quarry. A handful of people watch over automated loaders and mining mechs. Scores of tools rise and fall together, regular, tireless, while vehicles rush about clearing the growing piles of rock. Neither machines nor overseers attend to her arrival. The disinterest is mutual. Masasi focuses on the sky. She sees it, ordinary, cloud-painted, part blocked by smog from nearby factories. But she also sees more. The film of blue reality stretched thin like a boil, filling with an alien pus. Directly above the quarry, the sky is folded, as if being pressed towards the ground, a giant inverted pyramid, roots hidden well above the horizon, its apex somewhere within the earth. She glides closer, careful not to touch it, and spirals slowly down. The tip is not within the quarry itself, not yet, though the diggers aim that way. Masasi lands, boots hissing as they absorb the impact. She detaches her glider, planting the two halves into the ground before the wings have fully retracted, and begins to dig. Before long she finds it. The narrowest point, sharp and focused. But then she finds it is not the end. Beneath her, the sense of wrongness widens again, as if the point she has discovered is not the tip at all, rather the meeting place of two pyramids, one on top of the other, mirrored forces trying to push into the world. The point she has found is the place of greatest pressure. It is not under the dirt, not literally. Normal geography does not apply. The thing Masasi sees is out of phase. There is no space for it to be here, yet the pressure continues to build. Sooner or later, something will give. She reaches out with her metal arm. Silver light spills out as the iris in her palm opens. She hesitates. There is nothing in the world that scares Masasi now, but this is something else, something not in or of the world. It is bigger than her. In spite of this, perhaps because of it, she makes contact. Chapter 10. A line cuts through fields of crops, 3 meters wide, stretching from the eastern coast to the western one. In places it is broken by remains of man-made structures. Once a wall of light stood here, holding back the spread of taint. Now it is gone. So have the trains that used to link it to the north. So have the mag rails that powered them. Scavenged, buried, stolen or eaten, integrated into 100 new ecosystems. Vesper steps into the space, stretches her arms. On the other side, giant crops continue, but are made to compete for dominance. Thick runners drape across the yellow stalks, excreting spore clouds from little holes in their knobbly flesh. Branches like hands sprout from the ground, choking the life from other plants. Among them, insects hang heavy in the air, rat-sized, their bellies swollen with blood. The girl shudders, turning up the collar on her coat, wrapping arms and clothing around herself, tight. Duet hangs back, only exposing enough of her face to peer along the open channel, first left, then right. The kid bounces past her, past Vesper, crossing the space with enthusiasm. Hooves connect with something hidden. An old cable tightens, snaring legs, bringing the kid to the ground with a thump. A trap set by the first's hunters. Vibrations travel along its length, rapid, determined, and 1/2 mile away a bell sounds, prompting unseen forces into action. The kid makes his own sound, less subtle. It is clear he finds his predicament unacceptable. "I told you we should have traded it." "Quick," says Vesper, racing towards the kid. Duet's reply is whispered from cover. "Leave it." "You can't say that." "I can. Whoever set this will be less likely to follow us if they get a meal." She meets Vesper's eyes as the kid squirms against his bonds, bleating, desperate. After a moment, Duet breaks away, abandoning stealth, cutting the kid free. He springs up and turns a quick circle, happy again. Duet scowls, remaining uncharmed. "We'd better get moving." They run on, quickly swallowed by the fields. Vesper is distracted by the abundance of life. Unknown creatures hang like fruit, waiting for night to come. Strange things moan under the earth, sliding worm-like through soil where swollen flowers grow, their stalks so bloated they almost fold in on themselves, their colours too pale, washed out. Duet grabs Vesper's hand and pulls her along, always forward, cutting a path where necessary. Often Vesper glances behind her. She sees movement, buzzings and crawlings, but no hunters. "Shouldn't we try and hide our trail?" "No chance. The ground is too soft here. Our best option is to outrun them." "Okay. Do you think we can do that?" "Not if we keep talking." They run on until breath becomes ragged. Eventually, though, they have to stop, weighing wasted time against the need to rest. Sweat glistens on Vesper's head and neck, attracting attention. Some of the insects are too big to fly. Instead, they jump from tree to tree, armoured monkeys, gangling, with bladed faces and gemstone eyes. On the girl's back, the sword hums, restless. At the sound, she looks up to see tainted insects all around her, hanging, 4 to a stalk. The kid tucks himself behind Vesper's leg. Wings thrum all around them. None move to attack. Seconds pass, tense, Duet with her sword ready, Vesper with her gun. The swarm watches them. Within a score of labium, proboscises quiver. Duet steps forward, sword raised, and the swarm fall back, maintaining distance. She steps forward again, testing. Once more the swarm retreats. With growing confidence she advances, pulling Vesper with her. Bulbous, faceted eyes fix on the girl and the goat. She keeps her sword arm extended and herself between predators and food, increasing pace. The swarm allows her passage, falling back in a rough line. They walk on, nerves tight. Weapons are lowered, but not put away. The action elicits a hum of excitement from the swarm. Vesper glances about, eyes wide. "What are they doing?" "I don't know," replies the harmonized, blinking angrily at sweat collecting behind her visor. "But I wish they'd get on with it." One of the swarm swings closer. Duet raises her sword again. It springs back. Still further they go, stalked by the swarm. Whenever heads droop or steps falter, the swarm inches closer. When Duet or Vesper realizes, they snap back to attention and the swarm gives ground, though never quite as much as before. Back and forth, like a sinister dance, playing out to its inevitable conclusion. When Duet finally speaks, her voice is dulled but firm. They won't leave us alone until they've had their fill. Pale-faced, Vesper nods. I'm going to give them your goat. You can't. It's that, or I sell myself to them, unless you have a better idea. The girl frowns, thinks. She looks around for inspiration. After a moment, she shakes her head, bitter. Okay. Maybe we were right to save it after all. Duet raises her sword. The kid looks up at the girl, cute, oblivious. Wait, don't do it yet. Why not? Just give me some time to think. We have to do this now. Get away while they feed. Vesper's eyes flit towards the kid and away, unsure if it is best to watch his end or not. She decides it is nobler to look. Changes her mind. Changes it back. Tears threaten to come. The swarm creeps a little closer. Okay, do it. Duet nods, raises her sword swiftly, and all at once the swarm disperses, buzzing away into the darkness. Silence pours in after them, shocking and sudden, but not pure. From behind them, hushed feet approach. One of them missteps, and a shell cracks underfoot, thunderous. Girl and Harmonized exchange a look, speaking as one. Run! Fatigue forgotten, they flee. Vesper stumbles, nearly falls, but momentum keeps her on her feet. Duet keeps pace, one hand pressed against her side, while the kid follows, mouth open, delighted. Behind them, unknown hunters give chase, while all around, the inhabitants of the Yellow Forest choose whether to run or hide, to watch or pursue. 1,116 years ago. The point where the pyramids touch is small enough for Masasi to curl her fingers around it, enclosing the distortion in her fist. From her open metal palm, her essence shifts, exploring, sensing. The divide between dimensions is thin here, stretched to breaking point. But even the tiniest film remains an infinity, too vast for her to comprehend. There are no cracks or splits, not yet, but what remains is so weak that she is able to feel things on the other side, like touching faces wrapped in plastic. It is tantalizing. There are hints of wonders beyond imagination, of terrors, of oddities that threaten madness, of more. She strains her senses, tries to understand what is there. Unformed shapes lurk on the other side, alien things, fluid, vast. She can almost define them now, almost taste them on her tongue. Fear tickles her thoughts, thrills through her body. A part of her wants to stop, does not want to know any more. Silvered fingers clench, and she dares to go deeper. Her essence finds the weakest place, or perhaps it is pulled there. She will never be sure. There is a growing desire to retreat, racing to match the need to go further. Like a hand on a window, her essence rests against the divide. From somewhere on the other side, things notice. They rise from dark places and storms of swirling madness, forming from unthinkable ideas. Chunks of void break away, becoming hungry holes that swim towards her. She sees it all then, and understands. So many of them, drawn by ethereal currents like scum down a plug hole, swirling towards the world, poised to pollute, to change, to destroy. and behind them, gaping open, is an incomprehensible dark, ready to drink the silvered light of her true self whole. For a deadly moment it takes her attention, the other monsters fading from sight. All becomes empty. There is nothing. Nothing. No. She holds the thought, forms it a second time. No. She has been to this place before. She will not allow it to take her. She will not. Her hand opens, her palm closes, and her arm drops away. Masasi walks clear, returning to her own solid world. She thinks of all she has seen, of the multitude that is coming. She has always been alone, but for the first time in her life she feels incredibly, painfully lonely. Duet tries to count the hunters as she runs. Vesper tries not to fall over. The kid simply runs. Behind them and the hunters come the swarm, and further back a host of opportunistic beasts and scavengers. Vesper sees some higher ground and makes for it. The slope sucks speed from her tired legs, but she persists. The hill is covered with stubbly grass. It snaps underfoot, smearing her boots, garish and green. At the top she sees the crops stretching for miles in every direction, endless yellow, waving softly in the wind, sickly. Further south, however, the stalks are overshadowed by tall buildings and taller spires. Gravity-defying roads spiral around and between them. Wonderland. It is not as grand as Vesper expected. Her uncle had talked of lights everywhere, with more variety and warmth than the shining city's cutting brightness. The only lights she sees now are reflected sun's beams, red and gold, winking suggestively from the highest towers. Even so, it brings hope. "This way!" she shouts, running down the other side of the hill, enjoying the sudden burst of speed it gives her. The kid struggles to keep up. On and on they run, hunters hot on their heels. Duet glances back, sees figures flitting between the stalks, details too easy to discern. She sees clothes, old but maintained, and weapons more advanced than sharpened sticks. Across the narrowing gap between pursuers and prey, darts begin to spit, thin, spiteful things. Several find their mark. They lack the strength to penetrate Duet's armour, lodging themselves into the metal, shallow, to become unwanted accessories. The harmonized spreads her arms wide, keeping close behind Vesper. Only luck and lack of height protect the kid. One punctures the bag on Duet's back, cracking a small tube within. Soon tablets weep from the hole, hard and blue. Vesper keeps the image of Wonderland in her mind. She tells herself it cannot be far, and gradually the world comes to agree with her. Greys and blues become visible between the stalks. "We're nearly there!" she cries. She makes it to the first structure before realizing that Duet no longer shadows her. Whirling round, she sees the harmonized doubled over, clutching at her side. Old wounds have rebelled, fed up of being ignored. As she rushes back to help, the fastest of the hunters arrives. A short man, bulked with muscle. He hurdles a treacherous route, winding his dart gun, firing. The missile streaks over Duet's bent back and buries itself in the thick fabric of Vesper's coat, half an inch from her neck. The girl raises her own weapon. There is not time for hesitation, but no desire to pull the trigger. She points low, away from the hunter's body, and squeezes. A searing light stabs out, too fast to avoid. It burns a hole through the hunter's thigh, scorching flesh, then biting into the foliage beyond. The man screams and goes down. Duet looks up, intent, forcing Vesper to focus on her. "Go!" Instead, she grabs Duet's hand. "It's not far. Come on." "No," replies Duet. shaking her head, giving Vesper's hand a final squeeze. "I'm done. Before she can finish, the man screams again, this time with words. "Help me!" Vesper turns back, but the man is not where he fell. The swarm has found the injured hunter, crawling under his legs, hooking into his skin, lifting, dragging him away into depths of the yellow forest. The girl just has time to see the man's face, to register the panic and pleading before he is gone. Unaware of their colleague's fate, more hunters burst through the undergrowth. Vesper fires again, and figures hurl themselves to the ground, shaking the long grasses with curses. Then she runs, keeping a firm grip on Duet, who adds her own seasoning to the hunter's words, but allows herself to be pulled along. Branches tug, vines threaten to trip. Vesper ducks and jumps where she can, pushes through where she can't. Cuts and stings collect, aching muscles make their presence known, but all bow down to the need to live. Adrenaline urges her on, and all at once they break clear of the stalks, almost falling into the city. Suddenly the ground is hard, shocking legs and resonating to the pitter-patter of hooves. Duet comes to a stop on her knees. "I can't." Vesper points the gun back the way they came. She sees no targets, but keeps her guard up and breath held. Time passes. Nothing comes out of the forest. No hunters or wild creatures, not even the hum of a tainted insect. Were it not for the darts protruding from Duet's shoulder plates and the one still in Vesper's collar, it would be easy to pretend the hunters were never there. Hastily, Vesper pulls out the scope with her free hand and puts it to her eye. Enhanced sight penetrates the shadows, reveals a group pulled far back, arguing. She cannot read their lips, but their expressions are clear enough. They're afraid. Of what? Vesper shrugs. I don't know. Us? Duet's laugh is bitter. I doubt it. At least they aren't chasing us anymore. For now. Good point. Let's go. The harmonized holds up a hand. Don't think I can. My busted side can't take any more running. Worry lines appear on Vesper, hinting at an older face yet to emerge. Okay. She gathers some debris, a faded piece of panelling and a withered half of a water container. She covers the harmonized with them, concealing everything save the tip of her helm and the toe of her right boot. I'm going to get help. Stay there. Funny. I'll be back soon, I promise. She looks at Duet, moves closer, and reaches around the panelling to take her hand, squeezing the gauntlet tight. I promise, okay? You know it's a crime to lie in the presence of the Seven? Vesper smiles weakly. I know. The medical bag is left by her side, along with the last of their rations. I don't know how long I'll be, but hopefully you can last for a few days at least. Not that I'll be gone that long. I should be back in an hour at the most, maybe 2. Enough talking. Right. She turns to go. Eyes smile behind the visor, not soft, but softer. And the sooner you go, the sooner you'll be back. Vesper brightens. Right. Right. The girl sets off at a run. From a gap in the side of her cover, a small head appears. Dark eyes regard her a moment more than is comfortable. Then the kid bounds away. Duet mutters to herself, twisting to look through a hole in the panel. The yellow forest remains quiet, mysterious. Apparently she is alone. One hand rests on her side, the other on the hilt of her sword. Both are useless. Another look through the hole reveals an unchanged view. Wincing in pain, Duet takes a blue pill from the bag. It is not enough. She reaches for another, surprised to find the tube broken and empty. Quiet curses fill the air while she investigates the bag more thoroughly. A variety of pills present themselves, several not normally available to citizens of the winged eye. She weighs them in her palm, knowing she should not use them, while cheeks flush red, guilty. A fly weaves its way through the fallen palace, buzzing past sloping rooftops. The man-shape waits for it, leaning out of a leaning tower, mouth open. When the fly arrives on tired wings, it does not land as expected, instead zigzagging back and forth over the cavernous split in the infernal's head. For a moment, the man-shape is confused. Then it remembers, summoning its tongue from deep within and draping it over lower teeth. Immediately, the fly lands. The man-shape's head closes like a steel trap. A droplet of blood spurts, and with it, a whisper of essence. It digests the message slowly, pondering the contents. Only when the man-shape steps away from the window does it notice Samael standing in the doorway. The man-shape frowns, trying to adopt an expression of displeasure. However, it has met very few humans, and those it has have been in states of extreme distress. As a result, all of its attempts tend towards the comic. A wheeze escapes Samael's lips, and his shoulders shake. The half-breed laughs rarely these days, so he makes sure to enjoy the moment. The man-shape turns its back on him. Its usual control seems to weaken. Shoulders slump. Arms hang slack. Samael steps closer, curious. He hears the infernal drawing in air, manipulating it. Within the cave of the man-shape's stomach, muscles contort and bones shift, a delicate operation. At last the air is pushed out, undercut by distant buzzing.
I have been practicing my speech again. What do you think?
Samael's shoulders clank as he raises them.
Is that all you can say? Even the master could not speak. Certainly none of the pretenders can manage it. They say the first speaks as the mortals do. Talk with me. I wish to practice.
Why? Samael hates the sound of his voice. It is too quiet, too full of echoes. Wrong. Since his creator changed him, he has been losing it a little more every year.
Because,
the man-shape replies,
you are all I have. This place is full of half-breeds. Born here, their shrieks do not interest me. I am ready to let it go. Take it from me if you want. No, such cuts always bleed, and you must remain intact if you're to save the master's legacy.
Samael's hair brushes his shoulders as he shakes his head. He is bored of these discussions. His impulse is not to rule, but to what? His steel hill is no longer safe. His desire to watch and defend against the breach has come to nothing. Next to the yearning, he is nothing. There is nowhere to go, no purpose to motivate, and so he stays, caught by inertia. The man-shape continues.
Do you ever wonder why we are this way?
No.
No? Yes, you do. Of course you do. Like you, I do not remember much of my time before the Master. Before I came to this place I had no form, no function. I have always thought that the Master gave me these things, but lately I have begun to doubt. The Master's will shaped ours. It created everything. Our hierarchy, the displays, all of it stemmed from the Master's wishes. But where did the Master draw inspiration? I never knew your Master.
The man-shape carries on as if Samael had not spoken.
We are unlike the mortals, superior, and yet we copy them. I think it began when the Master forced itself into the shell of our enemy, taking on her shape, and I think more than a slice of her thoughts. The Master believed her shell fully purged before taking residence, but something of the foundation must have remained. And then, during our battles to transform this world, the world transformed us.
Where is this going?
Yes, where is this going? I wonder that often.
The yearning will take us all soon.
Will it? My zero in New Horizon brings news. The malice has returned, an old tooth in young hands. It sharpens by the day. That is what will end us all.
Samael nods, accepting the inevitable, feeling neither joy or sadness.
Unless,
the man-shape adds,
it could be controlled.
Impossible.
I am going to send word to the others, and they will hunt the malice down and find a way to turn it on the yearning. It is our only chance.
Then do it.
I will. But first I wanted to tell you.
Why?
To give you a head start. Whoever succeeds in this will become our new monarch.
I am not interested.
Then which of them would you rather serve?
Samael stops. He wants to say that he does not care, but that would be a lie. Without another word, he makes for the door. And as his boots ring out on tarnished steps, the man-shape smiles its inhuman smile. Chapter 11. Long ago, Wonderland was adorned with necrotic pipes and posts, unliving structures bonded with the steel and plastics of the original city. Only stains of their rot remain now, cleared away by rain and a myriad of creatures, happy to feed on old meat. Vesper wanders slowly through empty streets, head tilted up to take in the dizzying sights. On the walls of the outermost towers are faded marks, rough warnings repeated on every side. At the base of these towers is a barrier of debris, 10 meters high, made from rubbish, mud, and yellowing bones. The mud is uniformly grey-brown. The bones a maddening variety of animal, human, and blends in between. She stops in front of it. The kid stops next to her. Do you think this is the sort of wall that keeps people out, or that keeps people in? The kid sniffs at the base of the barrier and quickly steps back. Vesper takes the hint and squeezes her nose before peering more closely. In places, time has decayed the barrier. Sections have partially collapsed, making a climb possible. Rain has begun the excavation of a giant's fleshless forearm. Once the property of a usurperkin, now a key support in the wall. Vesper marvels at its size for a moment, then eyebrows shoot up, inspired. She extracts an old tube from the wall and pokes it through the gap between radius and ulna. The mottled plastic slides through the mud on the other side, going deeper and deeper until Vesper's arm is passing through the bone and she is leaning against the barrier, drinking in its stench. Loose bits of matter spill down onto her shoulders, clump in her hair. She tries to push away, her hand sinking in a couple of inches before finding purchase. Wet earth fills the space between her splayed fingers, and she feels the edge of something else, a horror yet hidden. The girl jumps back, gagging, pale, and vomit rises in her throat, threatening to appear. Bemused, the kid watches from a safe distance. There is coughing, a distinctly wet burp, and the danger passes.
"I can't do this," she says quietly. "I can't."
But thoughts of duet haunt her. If the harmonized dies, it will be her fault, and she is already full with guilt.
"I must do this."
She repeats it, a mantra.
"I must do this. I must do this."
When breathing has returned to normal, Vesper pulls her top up over her mouth and begins scavenging again. Eventually she finds an aerial, bent in the middle to form a circle, approximately neck-sized. She straightens out the metal, then uses it to unblock the tube that she has placed through the muddy wall. Her tools are imperfect, and progress is slow. The kid sits down. Sometimes the aerial yields before the mud does, and Vesper has to straighten it again. She glances around, then whispers a curse, experimental. Cheeks flush with daring, and she swears again, suddenly feeling very grown up. At last the aerial forces out the last of the blockage, and Vesper is able to see through the tube to the other side. The view is limited. A courtyard strewn with debris, some of it human, some of it twitching. Handlings scuttle from one shadow to the next, while bald birds with no feathers and sagging bellies line up on a nearby rooftop. She looks back to the kid.
"It's horrible over there, but I think we'll be okay. Shall we climb over?"
The kid gives her a sour look.
"Okay,"
she agrees, glad to move away from the barrier's edge.
"Let's try and find another way in. Come on!"
The kid springs up. Vesper wanders around the perimeter and finds the barrier continues in a large square, linking the towers and sealing in the gaps. A noise startles them both, a growl, animalistic. It is not clear what makes it, and Vesper has no wish to find out. Legs protest at the idea of further running. She studies the buildings as the growling draws closer. Her eyes are lighting on a low window, one of the few to be broken but not boarded. She pulls out the biggest chunks of plasglass from the frame and drapes her coat over the smaller ones. It is a simple thing to lift the kid over. A rough tongue laps at her face as she drops the young goat on the other side. Then she pulls herself through. Dust cakes the room and its contents, muting colours and blending objects. A single chair takes centre stage, cut from a chunk of live foam and still holding the imprint of its last occupant. The chair is tilted at an angle, perfect for reclining or sleep. Vesper draws the kid close and crouches low under the window. The kid sniffs at her ears, and she has the ridiculous urge to giggle. "Shh," she whispers. The growling creature moves by the wall now. She closes her eyes, unable to stop her imagination creating images, vivid, of the monster outside and how she would look hanging from its jaws. Outside, the growling stops. The kid trembles against her as Vesper holds her breath. The growling sounds again, but further away this time. As quickly as the creature arrived, it has gone. Fear washes away in a tide of relief, followed quickly by a crushing sense of fatigue. On hands and knees, Vesper crawls across the room and pulls herself onto the chair. The kid follows, settling onto her lap. "We can't stay here long," she tells him, stroking the top of his head. "Duet needs us." Vesper lets the chair take the weight from her heels and her head. Her eyes feel heavy, but she dares not let them close. As she fights to stay awake, a new wonder presents itself. From this angle, Vesper can see skyships hanging from the ceiling, a fleet in miniature, suspended in the air, slowly rotating. Every detail is perfectly captured, and, unlike everything else, their surfaces are free of dust, glinting, winking as they turn. She recognizes one of the models, matching it to memories of skyships soaring about the shining city, but most of them are unfamiliar, older designs no longer used, or rarer ones, lost in battle or left to rust. The kid licks the sweat from Vesper's hands before falling asleep. "You poor thing. You can have a few minutes, just to make sure that creature really has gone, but that's all." She blinks slowly, her eyes reluctant to open again. "Just a few minutes," she murmurs. A moaning wakes her. A distant, hollow noise, evoking a sense of size and misery. Sitting up, the first thing Vesper notices is the waning light. A brief blink has become a long sleep, her treacherous body stealing back lost slumber. Questions haunt her. How much time has passed? Does Duet still live? How did this happen? Ashamed, she turfs the kid from her lap and climbs out of the chair. It seems reluctant to let her leave. After a short struggle, she hops down and crosses to the door. The sensor above the doorway dimmed years ago, and the mechanisms that moved it have stopped forever. She places her hands against the smooth surface and starts to push it sideways. Both girl and door grunt and groan as it slides slowly into its housing. On the other side is a much smaller room, covered in empty containers. Vesper crunches over them to get to the window. Now the moaning is easier to hear. Vesper shudders, but goes to look anyway. The kid joins her, stretching up on hind legs, front hooves on the sill. They see the courtyard in all its horrific detail, and it becomes apparent why the bodies still twitch. A torso, bereft of legs, head rotting, eyeless, is dragged across the square by two tentacles growing from its back. Bits of string are tangled with its trailing innards, and these in turn collect more treasures. A torn bag, a small chain that glints, and a branch covered in leaves, green and thick. Entranced, the kid's eyes follow its slow progress, a long string of saliva dangling from his chin. But it is not the source of the moaning. Vesper has to look up to see that. A half-alive giant lurks behind a nearby tower. Even a tiny section of its silhouette inspires terror. Hooked legs sprout like horns from its moon-like face, a mane of limbs, shaking, sorrowful. Vesper ducks out of sight, fighting down the vomit. She sits low, letting the wall press cold into her back, and murmurs to herself, "Can't do it." She wants to help her friend. She wants to be a hero like her father. "I can't do it." Fear crowds out thought, and she covers her face. The kid cannot bear it any longer. He springs up, scattering containers, to wobble on the window's edge. Vesper looks up to see hooves flying, gone. Her arm stretches for where the kid was, the gesture as wasted as her shout. "Wait!" The girl peers out to see the kid scampering across the square. For a moment, the giant has not noticed him. Hissed pleas to come back are ignored. Getting desperate, she pulls herself half out of the window and raises her voice in a feeble shout. "Please stop!" The kid glances back, tongue lolling. "Yes, that's it. Come back." The kid looks again at the torso and its tail of leaves. There is no contest. Vesper watches, locked with fear, as the kid leans down to bite. Tentacles pull the torso clear of snapping jaws, and the kid comes up with nothing. He hops in surprise and goes after the torso again. The giant's head turns towards him. Unable to bear it any longer, Vesper jumps down into the square and runs after the kid. She keeps low, back hunched like an old man, head down. She is no less visible for it. The kid chews happily, branch hanging from his mouth, still tangled with dirty string and stringy flesh. When tentacles pull again, the torso moves and the kid moves with them. Hooves slide on stone, then find purchase. The kid pulls back. A few hard inches are won before the tentacles continue on their way, mindless, taking torso and treasures and hanger-on with them. Frowning, the kid pulls back. Vesper arrives. She grabs the branch and snaps it, leaving one half in the kid's mouth and the other still attached. Then she frowns and looks at the body again. Up close, the horror is less convincing. The eyeless face is more wax-like than lifelike, and the tentacles make clicking sounds, regular, their inner working more the turning of wheels than the swirling of essence. She glances over her shoulder to look at the sword. It still sleeps, unmoved by the theatrics. While Vesper thinks, the kid chews. Another moan brings her attention to the giant. It faces them now, shaking its head in anger. Vesper reaches around to touch the sword at her back. Nothing. Not even a slight quiver. She stands up and pulls out the scope. With magnification, she makes out wires attaching the head to the side of the building. The moaning gets louder. The headshakes more violent. The mane of legs rattles like a nest of snakes. Then one falls off, landing with a hollow clunk. Vesper smiles and walks towards it. Still chewing, the kid trots after her. The fallen leg is a prosthetic, wrapped in cloth, red dye unnecessarily bright. Vesper nudges it with her foot to be sure. "Hello?" she calls out. "Is anyone there?" The giant roars. The kid jumps, fearful. Vesper sighs. "You can come out. I'm not going to hurt you." There is no response from the giant. She raises the scope to her eye again and traces the wires from the back of the giant's head to an opening high in the tower. It is a simple matter to skirt the base of the building until she finds a door. Unlike the one before, it opens easily. A chute runs from the floor up through the ceiling. An oval has been cut from one side, allowing access. Vesper approaches it. Whatever arcane forces that used to propel people up and down have been replaced by a dirty ladder. "Stay here," she says to the kid, giving him a last pat on the head before ascending. Dark eyes track the girl until she is out of sight. Then the kid sits and gets down to the serious business of eating. The climb is long enough for worries to surface. Vesper climbs on anyway, not sure what else to do. 5 floors later, and Vesper steps out of the chute into a circular room. In a previous life, it served as a viewing platform, augmented eyes transmitting images via necrotic pipes. The walls that Vesper sees are blank, save for the rows of sockets, dried up like a score of wizened earholes. The wires from the giant's head come in through a window, gathering together in a complicated knot at the back of a machine. The front of it is full of levers, and on top a pair of brassy megaphones sit, one inside the other, humming softly. By the machine stands a girl, not much off Vesper's height, dressed in baggy clothes with rolled-up sleeves and metal pins in her trousers. Dark hair falls uneven over a purple face. On Vesper's back, the sword shifts in its sleep. She takes out the gun. "Don't move." The half-breed shrinks back against the wall. "Now, you'd better tell me," she begins, but pauses as she notices the way the other girl's hands shake. "You'd better tell me who—" It strikes her how young the girl looks, how scared. She puts the gun back in her pocket. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The half-breed doesn't meet her eye. "True, like?" "Yes. I'm Vesper." "Runty." "What? Is that your name?" The half-breed puffs out her chest. "Yeah?" Vesper stifles a laugh. "Are you alone here?" "No. There's loads of us. And if you did anything to me, they'd come get you." "Okay." "And do bad things, lots of times." "Look, I'm not going to hurt you. I have a friend who is badly injured. Do you know anyone who could help her?" Runty nods, very serious. "You need to see Nia. She knows things. She's a fixer." "Is she close?" "She's in the Don't Go, where all the maggots and buzzers are." "Will you show me?" "As long as you swear." "Swear what?" "That you won't make her angry." Past broken villages and gutted towers, Samael marches. He keeps a steady pace, unfazed by night and day. Legs no longer tire, muscles obey without question. He finds it hard recalling the meaning of rest. With little of the physical to distract him, and only a bleak landscape to entertain, thoughts turn inward, chasing each other, repetitive. He wonders why he is competing for the usurper's throne. He cares little for power, cares little for anything. Standing atop his steel hill and watching the breach gave him a kind of peace, not happiness, but better than anything else. Now the yearning has taken that from him, forced him to search for the malice. But the malice scares him. He turns the thought over in his mind. I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid of the sword. Why? He cannot fathom the answer, leaving the question to circle, recasting itself with each pass, increasingly irritating. And if he does fear the malice, if he does not even want to be part of the fallen palace's madness, why do what the man-shape suggests? The truth is simple. Pride. As much as he does not want to rule, the idea of an infernal doing so irks him. They are not worthy. He cannot imagine bending the knee to any of them. In the dirt ahead, a mangy dog spawn sniffs for scraps. He ignores it. It is tempting to stand aside and allow the yearning to take them all. It would be simpler that way. Let there be an end to it, finally. And yet, a part of him is not satisfied by that. A part of him imagines the infernals having to bow to him, painting intricate pictures of their rage, how they would hate being subservient to a half-breed. Yes, even more than he would enjoy watching them die, he would enjoy their suffering. The dog spawn growls at him as he gets closer, a halfway threat, as if the beast still deliberates whether to attack. The animal looks thin, desperate, but not mad. Somewhere nearby it must have a handler. He surveys the environment, seeing little. Flatlands stretching to mountains in the east and the horizon in the west. Few hiding places. He approaches the dog spawn, noting its mismatched eyes are both unclouded, though the human one droops half-closed. A wave of revulsion strikes then, and he has the sudden urge to destroy. He raises his sword above his head, moving into range. Unbidden, a memory rises, so clear it eclipses the present. He sits on a boat in a tranquil bay. Sun's light dances on the waves, hypnotic. Red and gold and blue and green, a shifting mosaic of beauty. If such things were still possible, he would weep. Around him are other boats, a motley collection of jury-rigged rafts and ships with well-worn repairs. One drifts close, a small skyship no longer good for flight, its pilot chatting happily with an alert-looking dog on the prow. He remembers how happy the two appeared, how lonely his own boat was in comparison. When the memory fades, he finds the world terribly grey in its absence. During the reminiscence, time has passed. Though his sword arm remains up, ready to attack, the dog spawn has moved off, something small wriggling in its jaws. On impulse, he diverts to follow it. They travel surprisingly far. Most handlers and dog spawn keep close together, unable to cope if their bond is stretched too thin. Eventually they come across a set of dips in the ground, giant hoof prints left long ago. In one of them lies a woman's body, caked in sweat. Shockingly young and painfully thin, with livid red skin covered in irregular grey spots. Her skin is naturally red, but the spots are a recent addition, parasites determined to suck her dry. But she is not dead, not quite. As they get closer, the woman contorts, twisting, painful, as if trying to wring her infection out. The dog spawn approaches, lowering its head by her side. It opens its mouth, and a small beetle drops out, legs waving in the air, broken. Next to it are other insects and scraps of meat, a pile of offerings unnoticed and unappreciated. Bite marks decorate the exposed skin on her feet and shoulder. In a few places the flying leeches still gorge, their veins swelling beneath translucent shells. The dog spawn nips at them, tossing them away, but it is too late. The handler is nearly gone, her convulsions easing, her face smoothing out. The dog spawn sits by her side and whines softly. Soon she will die, and soon after the dog spawn will go wild, a grim future full of madness and death. The whining continues long after her breathing stops. Another impulse comes, unexpected, and Samael's hands are reaching down to the woman's still warm corpse. Knowledge guides them, secret arts taken from the uncivil by his creator and buried deep in his unconscious. Realizing what he is about to do, he hesitates, then takes off a gauntlet and pushes open her eyelids. Her left eye is bloodshot blue and human. Her right a rich brown, canine. He plucks her right with deft fingers, extracting it carefully. His own half-breed eyes see the tether of essence running silver-grey from the soft orb to the skull of the dog spawn. He pulls off his helmet. He places the eyeball in the palm of his gauntlet, leaving his other hand free to operate. There is another hesitation, but he finds he wants this enough to continue and reaches up towards his face. It is as if another's will takes him through the procedure. There is pain, brief, and half the world goes dark. He takes the eyeball sitting in his palm and raises it to the hole. The physical actions are mere mechanics, the manipulation of essence and inner surgeries immensely complex. The dog spawn howls. Samael remains silent throughout. When it is done, he replaces his helmet. New senses flood his own, smells and fears. Hunger has long been irrelevant to him, but he finds the return of the sensation refreshing. "Eat," he says, pointing to the pile of leavings, and the dog spawn does. It is a sad-looking creature, underfed. Reddish fur, shaggy and covered in scars from past battles. One ear has been chewed away, the other stands straight and alert. When it has finished eating, it sits and looks at him. He gropes through the dark sea of his mind, wondering what he should do. The dog spawn is excited and afraid, he knows this. Haltingly, he touches its head, scratching behind the good ear. A heavy tail begins to thump on the ground. And then a sliver of memory comes back, and his cracked lips curve into a smile. He kneels down so that he is face to face with the creature. "I am Samael, your new master. From now on, I will call you Scout." Chapter 12. The building is small, fin-shaped, and barely large enough to house a toilet. Bird shit runs in frozen streaks down its sloping side. A flapping curtain covers the front, struggling against metal clips. Runty chews at what's left of a thumbnail.
"She's in there."
"Good. Do we go in?"
"She'll come out."
Vesper glances up at the fading light. "We need her to come out soon."
"Nia comes when she comes."
"What do you mean?"
"What I said. You got ear mould."
"Do you mean she'll be here in a few minutes, or hours, or days?"
"Yeah."
"That's not good enough. I have to see her now." The girl takes a step back.
"Go on then."
"Aren't you coming with me?" She shakes her head.
"Me? Go in the don't go? Never."
Vesper takes off one of the clips and lifts the curtain. Behind it is a large circular chute angling down into the dark. Air wafts up, damp and sweet. "Is this safe?"
"Yeah. We drop stuff down there all the time."
"And you think she'll help?" Runty shrugs.
"Probs, if she wants. Just don't make her angry."
Vesper climbs into the chute and sits down, patting her thighs. The kid scampers over and joins her. She throws the clip back to Runty. "How do I get back out again?"
"Climb out." "She does."
She sets the navpack to torch setting and shines it down the hole. It continues at the same angle as far as the light extends, undamaged. She ties the navpack to the side of her boot to illuminate the way down, nodding to herself. "Okay." She presses her hands and feet against the chute's insides, inching forward. Gravity notices and starts to pull, testing young muscles. Further down they go, slow and careful. With a sense of casual inevitability, the kid slides off her lap, dropping into the space between her open legs, accelerating. Vesper reacts quickly, catching the kid with her feet. They hang there for a moment, all of their weight on Vesper's arms. Sweaty palms struggle to grip, squeaking against the smooth sides of the chute. She has time for 3 different exclamations before she falls. The chute is cut from several pieces of metal, fused together. Vesper feels the joins thrumming against her back, like a finger flicking, flicking, flicking. From side to side they bounce, separating, one rolling, the other spinning. Hooves clatter in the dark, animal noises are made. Seconds later, they spill into a larger chamber. Vesper checks herself. Old bruises have been remastered, new ones added, but nothing worse than that. She sits up, one hand rubbing the back of her head, the other pulling the navpack off her boot. The room is moist and smells of death. Bugs carpet the walls, crawling over each other, constant, shifting, giving glimpses of a honeycomb brick underneath. By contrast, the floor is completely clear. The kid takes one look before burying his face in Vesper's coat. Vesper looks around for an exit, cannot see one. When she steps forward to study the walls more closely, the sword begins to hum, angry. Insects flee from the sound, flowing away, parting like a black tide. She steps back, and the humming softens. Insects pour into the gap, sealing it in moments. She steps forward a second time, watching as the humming rises and the insects retreat. Stepping back, the actions reverse themselves. Leaning her shoulder and the sword's hilt towards the wall, she makes a quick circuit of the room. The crawling creatures rush away from her like a wave, revealing a desiccated, chalky structure. And a door. It opens easily at Vesper's touch, and she goes through, dragging the kid after her. A figure waits on the other side, shrouded in robes and mystery, her voice a hard, dry croak.
Who are you?
Vesper's torchbeam finds a face within the cowl, a mask of leather stitched to old bone. The navpack slips from her fingers, landing with a clatter, over-loud, and going out. A pair of pupils glow green in the darkness.
Well, name yourself.
Vesper, she replies, hands fumbling towards her pocket. Are you near?
We're not taking turns, child. You are a trespasser, and you will answer my questions first, all of them, if you know what's good for you. And then we'll see what we will see.
She nods, then, because it's dark, adds, Okay.
I should warn you. I'll know if you lie to me.
The figure moves in the dark, and bones pop, reconfiguring. The kid makes a soft plopping noise as he faints.
Where are you from?
The Shining City. Well, not the city itself, but nearby, on the outskirts. Within the protected boundary, but apart from the others, on a farm.
What do you farm?
Goats, mainly.
Goats? Untainted goats?
Oh, yes.
Well. This is most unexpected. You seem well armed for a farmer.
Her fingers curl around the gun's handle, finding comfort there. Yes, I am. But I'm not here to fight. There is a pause.
I believe you.
I'm here to ask for Nia's help.
And why would Nia be interested in helping you?
Because I can tell her about the North, if she's interested, and the Shining City, or I can trade with her.
Really?
Yes, news, or supplies. I'll do whatever I can, but my friend is hurt and she needs help and she doesn't have much time.
What's wrong with her?
She got injured in a battle a few days ago. Her ribs are broken. I've done my best, but it wasn't good enough, and now she's getting worse.
All right, my little farmer. I'll see what I can do. No need to cry.
She sniffs, self-conscious. I wasn't.
Of course you weren't.
Are you Nia?
In a manner of speaking. I'll explain on the way.
Vesper stands at the bottom of the chute, looking up. The kid sits in her arms, awake now, but keeping a low profile. Nia stands behind them.
Are you ready?
She shivers as Nia's cold arms wrap around her.
Ready.
Under Nia's robes are 3 square spirals of bone, 2 attached to her hips, 1 to her spine. As she steps onto the chute, the spirals unfurl, becoming extra legs. Longer than her own, they straighten, lifting all 3 of them off the ground. Vesper shivers again. On her back, the sword's wings twitch and an eye cracks open, the thinnest of slits. Trapped in its sheath, it shakes angrily between the girl and the half-alive woman. Nia chuckles, though her head pulls back from the sword quickly enough. Without talking, they ascend. Silence punctuated by bones clicking on metal and the sword's rage, muffled. At the top, she deposits her cargo, and Vesper stumbles away several paces. By the time she turns, Nia's extra limbs have lowered her to the ground, retracting beneath the robes again, out of sight.
What are you?
My name is Ferencia, and I was the Surgeon General to the Uncivil, greatest of her Necroneers.
Most of the words pass her by, save one. She draws her gun and points it at the half-alive.
The Uncivil! You're an infernal!
No. I'm not the girl I used to be, that's true enough. But an infernal? The very idea.
The gun continues to point at her.
You look like an infernal.
Seen a lot of them, have you? Don't answer that. What you call an infernal is something from another world, and no person, not me, and certainly not you, can understand what that is. And besides, infernals don't talk. They don't need to.
The first does.
Clever little farmer, aren't you? Well, yes, the first does, but I think it's the exception, not the rule.
So you're like a dog spawn?
Nia folds her arms.
I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. My essence is human, through and through. It just happens to be attached to a few benign fragments of the Uncivil's essence. But your face is dead. Most of me is. I was old when the Uncivil recruited me, and I'd look a lot worse than this if it wasn't for her intervention.
If you're not a half-breed, and you're not an infernal, what are you?
A human being, like you.
Her hand turns, describing circle after circle.
Just with a few more years and some major augmentations. But in here,
she taps her head.
Or, if you're the sentimental type, here,
she taps her heart.
I'm unchanged.
Vesper puts the gun away.
But I thought the infernals take over people's bodies.
Some do, like the first. The usurper and its minions were famous for it, but the Uncivil wasn't like them. She believed in independence. She dealt with us one by one, listened to our needs, and, if we could help her, she satisfied them.
You make her sound like a person.
Nia's smile is small, her face too set to allow anything more.
Do I now? She wasn't. I didn't understand her, even after years of working on her, but at least with the Uncivil I knew where I stood, and that's a lot more than I can say for most.
Her eyes go pointedly to the sword on Vesper's back, then to Vesper herself. They cross the shadowed courtyard under a giant head's glassy gaze. Tentacles drag a battered torso across their path. Vesper and the kid don't even flinch.
Our little show didn't fool you then?
It did at first, but...
She reaches down to stroke the kid.
When we got close, we saw through it. Used to be necrotech powered the whole thing. It was really something then. But each time a little essence leaked away, and even I couldn't find a way to make the seals perfect. A ramp waits for them, leaning against the barrier. Nia strides up and unfolds a rope ladder, dropping it over the other side. Vesper chews her lip and scurries down after her. It is dark now, stars pushing through the fading film of blue, illuminating little. The huge yellow stalks have paled to grey, gatekeepers to 100 hidden threats. Vesper listens, wondering if there are hunters nearby, doing the same. Sounds come to her, unfamiliar, nocturnal calls and movements and something else. A raised voice, manic. Nia slows to a stop. I take it your friend is that way? But Vesper is too busy running to answer. The running figure catches Samael's eye, too fast for an animal, too fluid for a machine. A competitor, one of many known to him. Hangnail. Anger rises and Scout howls in empathy. His detour has been costly, the head start given him by the man-shape spent. There is nothing to do but give chase. He sets off, and Scout keeps pace, tail waving like a bloody flag. He and Scout race Hangnail to the ever-open gates of New Horizon. From a distance, the city is characterful. Ruined turrets lean against rusting walls like a crowd of merry drunks. The comings and goings of its denizens appear to obey an algorithm, abstract and colourful. From a distance, imagination can paper over the cracks with more palatable illusions. Sadly, both runners make quick work of the distance. A stab of memory makes Samael stumble. It is quick, barely even an image, gone before he can process it. He stops and stares at the city with renewed contempt, paralyzed by the desire to destroy. Hangnail runs on, extending its lead. But Samael doesn't notice, held in place by thought shards and feelings, disconnected, disconnecting. Hangnail runs on, passing through New Horizon's great southern gates and beyond, out of sight. From further behind Samael comes a broken chorus of shouts and shuffles, burping, popping, boasting and growling. He doesn't notice that either. Something taps against his armoured thigh. No sensation reaches him, but the ringing of claw on metal draws his attention. Scout sits at his feet, one paw raised, uncertain. He pats its mangy head, and it whines, dashing back the way they came, to freeze, arrow straight, head pointing to distant shapes. Samael doesn't need to turn round, using their shared vision to see the new threat. Gutterface and the backwards child travel in full force, close but not together. On one side, a motley crew of muscle-heavy usurperkin bearing their diminutive leader above their heads. On the other, a pick and mix of the most loathsome infernals, bulging in the skins of rodents and the bodies of chicks burst untimely from dead eggs, all clustered around Gutterface, rubbing against it, affectionate and sickening. With new incentive, Samael runs, and soon the noise of the pursuing infernals is lost to the discordant music of the city. On New Horizon's streets, people cleave together in packs or move quickly, heads down, avoiding eye contact. Skin is more colourful than clothes here. Purples, greens, yellows, oranges and browns stark against pale fabrics. Bruises mark many faces, decorative. And chains, physical or otherwise, link slaves to masters. Samael's eyes cannot help but see them all. He is an oddity here, and they know it. Neither full infernal nor half-breed in any sense they understand.
They have heard of seraph nights, and memories of the nights of jade and ash still have power enough to disturb sleep, but Samael falls between the gaps, neither one or the other, somehow mocking both. A not quite anything, an ugly mystery. In New Horizon, the rules are simple. If in doubt, run or hide or die. And everyone old enough to think for themselves plays by the rules. For Samael, it is a strange novelty. He is used to being despised rather than feared. The streets clear for him as he walks, the sensibles slipping back to their holes of residence, the young watching from alleys or the empty sockets of tortured houses. A reluctant circle of people breaks at his approach, meat traders and flesh merchants keen to save their own skins. They leave a slave to shiver alone in the road, abandoned. Cables tie him to a metal spike, not too complex for quick release. Samael ignores the whimpering as he passes. Scout does not, stopping to sniff. In response, the slave retreats to the other side of the spike, and cords dig deep into his neck, holding him in tight orbit. Saliva collects around sharp teeth, hanging in strands, thick and stringy. A dog spawn and its belly growl together, jaws open, ready to grind against a spindly leg. Samael turns a corner at the end of the main street. Tail low, Scout yelps and dashes after his master, slobber swinging back and forth from an open mouth. The slave experiences a moment of relief, a positive blip in a life filled with despair. It does not last. Meanwhile, unaware of the many travesties playing out around him, Samael marches on. There is no sign of hangnail, just street after street of misery. Hunger haunts 100 faces, sharpening eyes and hardening hearts. Scrawny bodies curl in gutters, too weak to complain. Around them scavengers collect, licking lips, stirring juices. A round-shouldered woman calls to Samael, asking him to stop. He ignores her. She bustles into his path, holding out wide, flat hands that sit like lollipops on bony wrists. "Who are you?" He steps to the left. She moves to match him. Scout arrives. He does not like the way she reaches towards his master. Samael steps to the right. Again she steps in his path. "In the name of the—" Her sentence cuts off in a flurry of fur and teeth. As the two struggle on the floor, she manages to get out a word. "Demagogue!" "Stop!" orders Samael. Scout looks up, gore-caked muzzle at odds with his innocent expression, an unidentified chunk badly hidden in his mouth. "Leave her." Scout ducks his head, contrite, sloping off to gnaw on his trophy. Samael wants to move on, leave this mess of a place far behind, but something, an impulse, stops him. He leans down, examining the bite mark. The woman props herself up to speak through pain-clenched teeth. "The demagogue demands your presence." "I don't answer to the demagogue." She laughs, despite her discomfort. "Of course you do. We all do." "I'm just passing through." "It doesn't matter what you were doing or where you were going. You're off to see the demagogue." She offers him her hand. "Now lift me up, will you? If we're late, neither of us will get to see the dawn." Chapter 13. Hunters gather, lean strips of shadow detaching themselves from the greater darkness. One by one they assemble on the edge of the forest of stalks, creeping forward under the stars. Wonderland looms before them. All know the history of the place, the grim and gory stories. Hearts flutter at the thought of them. Bowels stir. "We should go back," whispers one. "Shh," says another.
We lost Jacks to the buzzers. We ain't going back to the first empty-handed, adds a third.
The others have the good sense to stay quiet. A hunter crouches down, fingers probing the churned earth. Tracks are found. 2 pairs of human feet and a set of hoof prints, small. He inches forward, led by the marks until hands reach smooth stone. He sighs.
They went in. Another feast for the Wonderland.
That's it then,
says their leader.
we're too late.
Shadows retreat, turning for home. They are nearly invisible again when a belch rings out, rounded and rich. A stifled giggle follows. The shadows pause, fanning out, searching. They find a piece of panelling leaning against a wall and a figure propped up behind it. As they draw closer to the source of the sound, they hear a woman's voice, firm.
I'm dead. I'm dead because of a damned burp.
A laugh bursts from her mouth. 4 of the hunters move into position around her.
It's not funny. It's not.
She giggles again.
Stop laughing. You're a servant of the winged eye on a sacred mission. Act like one.
The hunters exchange glances. Several shrug. The nearest one pulls away the cover. Duet sits as she was left, medicine bag in her lap, sword laying parallel to her leg, unsheathed. Before the hunters can strike, brightness shines from her visor, blinding, cutting a wedge from the nighttime. The closest to her gasp, clutching at faces and raising their arms. Those further back aim dart bows, trying to thread shots between their friends. Metal spines spit through the air, finding new homes in the wall and Duet's armour. A few catch the flailing limbs of dazzled hunters, burrowing deeper to slip toxins into bloodstreams, paralysing, swift.
I'm not,
she begins, hacking at the legs of the 2 nearest.
going to.
In her weakened state, strikes that would dismember nearly cut deep.
Pitiful!
She shouts, interrupting herself.
Is that the best you can do? You've always been a disappointment to us.
Duet shakes her head.
Shut up, traitor. You're not here. I killed you. Shut up!
2 hunters scream, hobbling out of range. The others regroup, quickly recovering from their initial shock. Duet rages in the background, monologuing while they confer.
Let's leave her,
hisses one.
Yeah,
says the second.
Wonderland's already taken her mind. It'll be coming back to take her body. That's how it is. That's how it happened to my mother's father's brother. It ain't gonna happen to me.
The third is unimpressed.
Crap to your stories and crap on your ancestors. We're bringing home a prize. Look at her. She's lost it. She can't even get up. We can take her if we move together.
Dart bows are swapped for knives and short sticks. As a pack now, the hunters re-engage. Duet watches them, letting her sword tip rest on the ground. I think I can take 2 with me, or maybe 3. 2? 3? I'm not sure. A giggle forces its way out, and then she half sings. 2 or 3, 3 or 4, I'm altogether not quite sure. She slaps herself on the side of the head with her free hand. Why can't I stop talking? And why don't these sorry fucks get on with it? The lead hunter raises his hand.
On 3. 1, 2.
A new arrival gives him pause. Something approaches fast from Wonderland, footsteps sounding like gunshots, and behind them a tall, robed shape, inhuman eyes flashing from a deep hood.
Shit it!
Though unorthodox, the order is clear enough. The hunters flee, dispersing quickly into pairs, driving back to the protection of the stalk forest. Duet rolls her head towards the newcomers. Vesper skids to a stop, blinking down at her. Duet, you're alive! I wish I wasn't.
Don't say that. I can't help it. It's like my mouth's got a mind of its own.
Confusion appears on Vesper's face. A moment later, the kid catches up.
It's probably the pills I took while I was waiting. Damn! Didn't mean to say that. Pills? How many?
She laughs again, hysteria catching around the edges.
I don't know. I was waiting for hours and hours. A lot. More than safe. Enough that I could die or go a funny colour. Maybe I'll do both. That seems to be the way my life is now. For the love of the eye, shut me up! I can't bear myself.
The kid begins to back away. Maintaining a more dignified pace, Nia finally reaches the group. Duet adjusts the grip on her sword.
Vesper! Get behind me!
Nia tuts.
Really, there's no need for that. I'm here to help you.
Damn you! And damn your help, monster!
Vesper tries to think of something to say, fails.
As I explained to your friend here, my situation is not what you expect. I'm human like you are. Just
shut up! Just shut up!
Duet pulls herself up the wall, grunting as she stands.
Look at yourself! Born with those eyes, were you?
The glowing pupils narrow.
You and I are about to have a misunderstanding.
Duet's next words are interrupted by a burp.
Not again,
she wails.
Not now!
She raises her sword, trying to threaten, then drops it, hands required to tear free her visor. As she doubles over, the faceplate sails over her shoulder, bouncing twice before settling. Vomit splashes hot and wet and acrid. Words and laughter come together, discordant.
It hurts!
There is another round of swearing and laughing, babbling moist words and blowing sicky bubbles, and then, sudden, dramatic, she passes out. Within the secret tunnels beneath Wonderland, deep in the Don't Go, there is a room. The room is full of instruments, proudly displayed on racks, ordered by size and function. A slab of plastic is suspended in the middle of the room, capable of rising or falling, of turning, of tilting. Duet is strapped to the slab, stripped of armour and consciousness. Nia leans over her, held steady on her tripod of ivory. Initial investigations bring tuts of disapproval. Vesper sits in a corner, chewing on a nail. The kid sleeps across her feet. Do you think you can help her?
My dear young girl, she replies without looking up. I have spent a lifetime merging the living with the dead, expanding the very boundaries of life's definitions.
But do you think you can help her?
Yes, I've just said so, haven't I? I was trusted to carve the paths in the boneways above our heads. I laid the road for the uncivil's essence to flow. I'm sure I can manage a few cracked and broken ribs.
The smart cast is removed. New skin has formed over old wounds, stretched tight in places by jagged bones.
No, this won't do. This won't do at all.
She picks up a scalpel and readies it, an inch above Duet's body. Eyes close and her left hand moves next to her right, fingers curling into a fist. Over the knuckle of her middle finger, a seam in the old leather opens, unveiling a third eye. One hand guides the other, and she begins to operate. Blood runs down the face of the slab, funneled along grooves into holes, stashed away for future projects.
Living subjects are so much messier than the dead. The necroneers used to be so artful in preparing the limbs, stitching and gluing so smart as to become decoration. Ah, yes, they were good times. Gone now.
Were there lots of you?
Oh, yes. From the collectors at the bottom to the cleaners and the pre-ops to my own order. I'm not sure how many we numbered in total, always changing, you see. We grew as the Uncivil did, recruiting in a rush to keep pace with her.
Red lines draw 4 doors on Duet's belly. Nia opens them all, unmoved by new smells rising, clogging the air. Vesper covers her mouth, presses harder against the wall.
What happened to them?
They died. Terrible waste it was. You see, when the Uncivil was ended, there was nobody to replace the essence animating our augmentations. When it faded away, undead limbs became dead and rotten, and nothing spread so fast as rot, it seems.
What about amputation?
It's not just about removing an arm or a tail. Many of us had been altered at the deepest levels.
Vesper says nothing, a silent confession of bewilderment.
The bonds weren't neat. They were intertwined with our very essence. You can't draw a line around something like that and cut it. And in any case, by the time we'd stopped grieving, it was too late. Wonderland was dead, and the Enlightenment gone with it. Within days the economy had collapsed, and people fell on each other like hungry dogs.
Oh.
A broken rib is eased back into position. A fragment, half-hanging, sharp, is removed. She holds it up, closing her knuckle eye and opening her other 2, bone limbs carrying her to a cabinet. On the other side are a collection of skeletons, each one exploded slightly, the gaps filled with careful documentation. Comparisons are made. Several times she comes back to a particular match, shaking her head.
Ah, well, it will have to do. Ugly measures for ugly times.
Long before she is finished, Vesper sleeps. Soon after, the sword stirs, disturbed by something. Wings part, and its eye swivels to point south, staring into other places, troubled, before turning its glare upon the sleeping girl. The work continues. Bone grafts are made and applied, cracks filled with a milky jelly. Swelling is eased, skin folded back into place, tied off neatly with black thread that swirls over pale skin like calligraphy. Hours pass, and Vesper wakes to the smell of soup. She is not in the same place she fell asleep. The walls are piled high with scribblings, tiny writing crammed onto chunks of slate and recycled lids, on treated skins, even the walls themselves, a stream of consciousness laid bare. Secrets and dreams writ large for any who care to read them. All Vesper sees is the warm bowl and the kid's tongue lapping.
Hey!
She says, sitting up on the thin mattress to push the kid away. To her surprise, the kid pushes back, head firm against her chest, knocking her back down. The kid sniffs, then resumes his feast. From the doorway, Nia chuckles. Not to worry, there's plenty more where that came from.
It smells great. What's it called?
Compound 3.
What's in it?
Compound 3.
Oh.
Nia passes the girl a second bowl of soup. This one is rectangular, cut from the base of a larger container. Vesper takes it and eats, adding her own sounds to the kid's happy grunts. Nia waits until they're nearly finished.
We should talk about your friend.
Vesper looks up, mouth still full.
Hmm?
She swallows.
What happened? Did you save her?
It was a trivial operation, but during it I observed several things of interest. What can you tell me about her?
She pauses. I think you should ask her. There is a flash of green, brief, but when Nia speaks again, her voice is level.
She's been operated on before, extensively. The techniques are strange to me, but not so much that I can't guess their intent.
She leans closer, and Vesper instinctively does the same.
She's one of those harmonized, isn't she?
The hesitation is only slight this time. Yes.
I knew it! Her essence has been attuned to another's. Her face and body too, I'd wager. Where's the other one?
Dead.
I think your friend is going to struggle.
Me too.
She probably isn't going to be long for this world.
Vesper looks at her, hopeful. Can you help her?
I've already done all I can. Assuming you still want to leave, that is. If you and your friend were to stay for the long term, I might be able to. I'd very much like to try.
How long does she have?
Try to understand. Half of her is gone. Physically she is intact, but her mind and soul,
Nia spreads her hands,
are fading. Her essence is trying to find what's been lost. Each time it reaches out, a little more fades away. I'd give her a few months, perhaps a year.
But we can't stay. We have a mission.
That's a shame. I'd hate to be the one to watch her degenerate.
She straightens.
But if you have to go, I suppose the sacrifice has to be made.
Wait. I don't know. I'm not sure what to do.
It really isn't up to me. What would she want?
I think she'd want to go.
Are you sure?
No. Vesper frowns, gets up. I'm going to talk to her. 1,114 years ago. The bird is colourful. Golden feathers crown its head and edge its tail. A matching chain hangs around its neck, regal. The man opposite is no less gaudy.
You see,
he explains to the crowd,
we talk to each other, she and I, not with words, a universal language, a language of the soul.
For 2 years, Masasi has searched, going high and low, from the targets of obscure docuvids to the offices of the best media wizards and thought doctors. Not one of them is like her. The desperate hunt for allies brings her here to a live show. She does not believe the buzzwords about the performer, does not expect to see any real magic, but still she cannot help but hope. The man points to a small skateboard mounted on a horizontal ramp.
Pollyanna, ride the board for us.
The bird complies, drawing chuckles from the crowd. Masasi scowls. She is looking for more than mere tricks.
Beautiful, no? But our bond allows for far more than play. What you're about to see is a level of power so secret that it has only been achieved by a few masters and only after years of training. I, the great Suprendus, found these masters and convinced them to share their secrets. Today I share them with you. For my next demonstration, the bond between Pollyanna and I will be tested to its ultimate limit when I place my life in her hands.
As if on cue, the crowd gasps. Masassi sits forward. A grain of truth is woven into his lies. Perhaps this one will be different.
"Behold!" booms the great Surprendus, "the wheels of death!"
Curtains pull back, revealing a set of 23 wheels, clockwork armed for war. A gap 1 meter wide and 2 meters high passes through the middle of them. The wheels leap across the gap, one after the other, like spinning discus thrown by an unseen juggler. The great Surprendus throws a bright blue fruit through the gap. Only pulp comes through the other side. Obligingly, the crowd gasps again.
"Each of these 23 wheels is connected to a switch on this display. Each switch has a code next to it, and each wheel a corresponding code written across its hub. As I walk between the wheels of death and I see the code, I will transmit it using only the power of my mind and command Pollyanna to press the appropriate switch. Only one wheel can be stopped at a time, and so there is no margin for error. Now I will need a moment of silence to prepare my spirit and Pollyanna's. Once we begin, can I ask that you do nothing to break my concentration?"
The man begins to hum softly, closing his eyes. Masassi studies his true face, is not impressed by what she sees. The bird is not much better. It looks forward to the food it will be given when the trick is done. The trick. Masassi is tired of tricks. As the great Surprendus begins to walk towards the wheels, she raises her arm, letting the iris in her palm open enough for a point of light to come through. He does not notice, passing through the first 3 wheels while Pollyanna dutifully hops from switch to switch. The timing is excellent, a testament to hours of training, impressive, but not magical. The needle of light tracks over the seats in front of her, over the backs of heads, passing up to the stage itself, where it finds its target. Meanwhile, the crowd hold their breaths as Surprendus steps safely past wheels 6, 7, and 8. Pollyanna opens her beak wide.
Stop!
She screeches, then throws back her head and laughs. The crowd laugh too, assuming it is part of the show. Surprendus stops, his attention torn between the unexpected development and the blade held inches from his head, spinning, ready.
"Now, Pollyanna, this is not the time for chatter."
Shut up, you old fraud!
The bird replies. A few titters ripple through the audience.
"Fraud? Fraud?
There is no bond, no magic. Admit it, or I let this switch go."
A few people glance at their neighbours. Not as many are smiling now.
"All right. I admit it."
Say it!
Demands the bird, relentless.
"There is no magic. There is no magic. Now, please, let us finish this."
Not yet. Tell me about the masters.
Of course. As soon as I am free of the wheels."
Now!
Pollyanna screeches.
Now!
"I'll tell you everything."
And he does. The great Surprendus did hear about a group of masters. He even sought them out, but they never taught him. He knows little more, but she has a lead. Despite her best efforts, a chink of hope appears in cynical armour. Masassi leaves the confused crowd behind. They stare at the sobbing man and then at the bird as it dances on the vital switch, swapping from foot to foot, cackling. Chapter 14. Vesper lingers in the doorway. Hello? Eyes blink open, staring blankly. They blink again, slowly remembering how to focus. Hello? Duet looks down at herself. What is this? Thick straps hold her in place, tight around bare limbs. The fine hairs on her arms stand up, attentive to the cold. She pulls herself against her bonds, feels rigid steel beneath soft padding. Hold on, I'll get those. Vesper goes to her side, fiddles with the clasps. As soon as one releases, Duet wrenches a hand free, making Vesper cringe away while she works on the others. Shaky hands make it difficult. Sweat soon beads at her brow, her face twisted in concentration and discomfort. Nia had to reset and regraft your bones. It was... How are you feeling? My side aches. Differently. Different how? A second wrist is liberated. Hard to say. Is it any better than before? It's like the pain is more on the outside now than the inside. With both hands free, her ankles are quickly unshackled. Duet looks around. Where's my armour? And where are my weapons? She frowns at Vesper. And where's the sword? All our things are next door. Get them. We need them. Okay, I will. But first, I wanted to talk to you about something. Duet swings her legs over the side of the slab and puts a hand against Vesper's chest. She looks down at it as the harmonized propels her back towards the door. Sword first. Chat later. Vesper stumbles away out of sight, mumbling apologies. Duet shakes her head, sighs, then takes in the surroundings. Specimens float in all manner of jars, pickling slowly. Her mouth turns down as she struggles to identify the species of donor. Arms full, Vesper returns to the room. The sword sleeps on her back once more, weighing her down. Here we are, she says, dumping armour and weapons and packs on the floor. That should be everything. Duet inspects her kit carefully, suspicious. It looks in order. Vesper's lips part, hesitant words not quite ready to emerge. She scares them off with her own. Never leave the sword unguarded again. It was only next door. That doesn't matter. There isn't even anyone down here apart from Nia, and she's a friend. Is she? How long have you known her? How well do you know these tunnels? Do you know who comes and goes? Are you sure we're safe? Would you bet our lives on it? Vesper's head shakes with every question. Never again, you understand? I won't. I'm sorry. The Seven don't care about apologies, nor do the Infernals. A little colour finds its way to Vesper's cheeks. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything! The outburst leaves her suddenly tired. She rests her head in her hands, and time begins to drift. When she looks up again, the kid is running up and down the outside corridor, and Vesper sits in the corner, glum. With one foot she hooks the medical bag and scoops it off the floor. Pills are quickly dispensed into an eager palm and popped. She wipes her mouth, notices the girl is watching her. What? Nothing. Go on. Spit it out. Go on! Nia thinks you're going to die soon, because you're harmonized and because the other you is gone. Duet lets the medicine bag slip from her fingers. She says you're going to... I don't know how to say it. Duet's voice is quiet. Yes, you do. You're going to get worse. In your head. How long? She doesn't know. A few months. No more than a year. Throats become tight, awkward. Skittering hooves slow, and the kid peers in at the two silent people. Duet stares at the floor, not seeing. Slowly her eyes close. Vesper moves to where she sits, wrapping her in gentle arms. Eyes squeezed ever tighter, she presses her head into Vesper's shoulder. For a while they stay that way. The kid bleats once, pauses, bleats again. When neither respond, he runs off. Duet wipes at her eye and pulls back. Thank you. Listen, Nia couldn't promise anything, but she thinks she might be able to stop things getting worse. What's the catch? Time. We'd have to stay here. There is a pause. Then the harmonized shakes her head. No. The sooner we leave here, the better. The demagogue's palace has gone through several incarnations. Shortly after the infernal tide first swept through New Horizon, the building collapsed, killing many of the occupants and putting a permanent crick in the demagogue's neck. Repairs are carried out quickly by a mix of slaves and demons, fear-driven and unskilled. Many die to complete the project, as much through incompetence as the design of the foreman. At first, the demagogue is pleased. It has little experience of buildings or aesthetics, but is certain that if the usurper has a palace, it should have one too. A larger one. Two problems emerge. Both come from Witterspear, New Horizon's half-breed chamberlain. Witterspear talks as most breathe, regular and unconscious. One day in court, a stray comment is made, the tail end of a dull conversation. Of course, the Fallen Palace is nothing like this one. From his high basin, the demagogue glowers, demanding explanation. It had thought the two were identical. Well, for one thing, the Fallen Palace leans at an angle, like this. The Chamberlain demonstrates. And for another, it's bigger. Juices bubble in the folds of the demagogue's belly, and Witterspear tries to backpedal. Not much bigger. The difference is marginal, barely noticeable. The next day, Witterspear is charged to make the demagogue's towers taller than the usurper's, to lean at a more acute angle, and to be grander in scale. More suffer, dragging materials up by hand and claw, pouring sweat into the growing structure. As soon as a new phase of the build eclipses the home of the green sun, it starts to collapse. Some say this is due to Witterspear's incompetence. Witterspear says it is because the usurper is ruler of all, and therefore no palace can be greater. The demagogue accepts this until the usurper is ended. While some infernals mourn the passing of their monarch, the demagogue orders a new round of building. Shortly after it crumbles, Witterspear's head is added to the scaffolds. New chamberlains come with designs and plans. Their heads line up together, mute testimony to the demagogue's displeasure. Through this legacy, Samael strides, a strange patchwork of history. No one wall matches the other, any sense of the original's cohesion buried in a mess of brick and metal, of glue and gaps. There are many holes in the demagogue's palace. A mix of struts and supports crowd in the spaces, eclectic, straining to keep the upper floors from gravity's embrace. Trophies and pictures are thrown up to an alien design, some at angles, some upside down. Several partially obscure each other, creating a collage, accidental. Some of the trophies are still alive, once displayed pride of place in the demagogue's court, now relegated to hallways or alcoves. They are fed when there is food to spare, and when the staff remember. His guide leads Samael along passages that wind and coil like ugly knots of string. Windows are everywhere, on inner and outer walls, making little cuts in the floor and great gashes in the ceiling, melted blobs of glass that tint the world in surreal colours. Through these he sees abandoned sections of the palace, unfinished. Stairs that lead nowhere, doorways that open onto nothing. Scout pads alongside him, communicating unease through linked essence and a heavy tail. One of the exhibits comes to life as he goes past. A young man, ribs proud and easy to count, eyes and cheeks sunken, hollow.
"Are you?"
he says, with the greatest of urgency. His guide waves a hand, dismissive, and keeps going. To her dismay, the exhibit continues to talk.
"Are you?"
Samael stops, annoying the guide, who is forced to wait for him. Am I what? His mouth flaps, fish-like.
"Are you?"
Come, says the guide, gesturing him to follow.
"It is not wise to keep the demagogue waiting."
He nods, and they continue on their way, leaving the man on his plinth. Samael is nearly at the passage's end when the man finds the words.
"Are you real?"
This time he does not stop. Of course he is real. The man sees something recognizable in Samael's armor, despite the battered plates and grotesque construction.
"Are you a knight?"
His question hangs in the air, unanswered, ignored. They pass through a set of doors that are sealed to the walls, forever open. It is unclear whether the gesture is symbolic or just apathetic. As he walks, Samael wonders. Is he a knight? He is not. But is he? Should he be? The thought troubles him, the idea too resonant to put away. The last question reaches him through Scout's ears, the dog spawn hanging back as, in truth, he wishes to himself.
"Are you going to honour your oath?"
He has never taken an oath. His creator did not need oaths to secure his loyalty. He was made to obey. But the question joins the others, swirling in his thoughts, an indigestible chorus. The demagogue's court chamber is made entirely of glass, a vast quantity of it, stolen over many years and fused together into a huge sphere of irregularity, thick in places, thin in others. The chamber makes nightmares of anything viewed through or reflected in it. It sits dangerously on top of the palace, an ugly bauble, clashing magnificently with its messy surroundings. Within the court are half-breed servants and demi-lords, keeping to the edges. A huddle of lesser infernals occupy a closer orbit, a colourful collection of shells, mostly animal. The demagogue has forced them into regular essence contact over the years, asserting its dominance. The result is a gradual eroding of boundaries, of identities, homogenizing possible rivals into a simplistic mob. Towering over them all is the demagogue itself, a giant mound of blubber bobbing in its basin. Its arms are long, wizened sticks, capped with spindly twig fingers, and its legs atrophied stumps. The shell's original head flops to one side, purple, like a wonky pimple. 3 humans sit on a bench before it, facing towards the entrance, still as statues. They are the voices of the demagogue, living mouthpieces for New Horizons' infernal ruler. The first man is thick-limbed, well-fed, and full of beard. The second, young and supple, hairless. The third, a tiny girl, wrapped in black. Samael is brought before them. Having carried out her duty, his guide makes a quick retreat. The demagogue reaches out with a stretched finger to stab the head of the tiny girl. Essence jolts into her, animating, and eyes glare with inhuman intensity.
What? What is it? Is it from the Palace of the Fallen? Another one?
The girl's chin juts towards another part of the room, and he realizes he is not the first to be invited. Hangnail stands painfully apart from the others, its body still, its essence radiating displeasure. The battered shell of a pink-skinned cat stalks around its legs, trying for Hangnail's attention, tugging at the infernal's ragged coat.
But wait,
says the girl, looking at Samael once more.
It was not there when we spilt into the world. It is not a challenger. It is not even of the jade and ash, an ashling at best. Which of us do you serve, ashling?
His response is automatic. I do not serve.
It does not serve. It will learn. It will see.
Enough of this. I must go.
Must it? Must it go? Where does it go? Why does it go? It will speak, or it will be made to speak.
The court tenses, prepared to do the demagogue's bidding. Hangnail's coat of skins twitches, ready to open, though on who it is hard to say. It is almost impossible to lie to an infernal. Samael knows this. He chooses a truth, hopes it will satisfy. I go to find the sea.
Later it goes. First it waits on my pleasure.
Why? Everything goes still, even the infernal cat, wary of what will come.
Why, it says. Why? Because I wish it. You are the second to come here, not the last. A gathering we will have. Until then, the ashling will wait.
He has no choice. There are too many for him to take alone. If Hangnail and he were to fight together, they may have a chance, but he does not trust Hangnail to support him, does not wish to throw his existence away, at least not cheaply. So he waits, wondering, questions loud in his mind. What am I? Ashling? Knight? King? Scout begins to growl, turning back to stare at the doorway. He senses it too, the coming of new infernals, familiar. A taste, powerful, utterly repellent, and lots of similar, lesser ones. He waits for them while thoughts swirl, storm-like, and his hand moves to the hilt of his sword. In her dreams, Vesper falls, ever faster, tumbling into the void. Sometimes she rushes towards it, sometimes it towards her, hungry. There are other details, trivial, changing from one night to the next, that Vesper forgets. Only the falling is constant, and the inevitability of impact. She wakes in surprise, in a sweat. Across from the bed, leaning in a corner, is the sword, its eye fixed on her. It does not look happy. Vesper rubs at her face. For a moment the room seems too solid, too substantial. In her heart she is surprised to find it still here. Slowly An eye closes, glaring while wings curl, returning to their normal position. She sits up, stretches. The room is just a room again, the sword a sullen, sleeping thing. Vesper turns her blanket back into a coat, pulling it on. Then she picks up the sword by its scabbard, mindful not to make contact with the sword itself. She is not sure what will happen if she touches the hilt, but expects it would be bad. She remembers her father's fear of it, remembers that unlike her, he was chosen by the Seven. For the first time, the reality of her situation strikes. Some day soon she will have to use the sword, and it may very well be her end. The kid follows her through passages, dusty and dark, to where Duet rests. "I think it's time to go," she says. "Finally." It has been 2 weeks since Duet's operation. The time is filled with waiting and arguments about her health and the need to leave. Nia escorts them to Wonderland's edge. Vesper chats with her, footsteps dragging towards the end. "Thank you so much for all your help."
"We could turn back if you wanted. There's no shame in it. You could live with me, and I could study your friend."
"I'd like to stay longer, I really would. But I think the sword wants us to go. And anyway, I have family waiting for me to come home."
"That must be nice."
Vesper's eyes brighten.
"You could come with us."
Nia is already shaking her head, but she presses on.
"That way you could help Duet, and we wouldn't have to part. It's perfect."
"Perfect? No. It is a sweet notion, but this body is getting too delicate for travel. And besides, what about Runty and the other children? They need me more than you do."
"You could bring them too."
"Now you're just being silly."
"How did you find all those children?"
"Oh, I didn't find them. Others found them or grew them from cuttings. I just look after them. It's one of the few parts of my job that is still relevant."
Duet stops, suspicious.
"A necroneer minding children?"
"What of it?"
"I don't believe it. More likely you harvest them for parts."
"Yes. I thought that was obvious. Even the best methods of preservation can't compare to fresh material."
"It's disgusting."
Vesper nods, horrified. Nia tuts at them both.
"Is it? They are given shelter and food and a much better quality of life than they'd have without me. They live for years in relative comfort. For years. Is it any different from keeping animals, my little farmer?"
She looks pointedly at the kid. Vesper frowns.
"Or any worse than grooming soldiers for battle?"
Words struggle out past Duet's rage.
"You can't compare what you do with me."
"Are you not looked after until such time your purpose is served? Tell me, how does the Shining City treat its veterans?"
"They are honoured."
"Do you know any?"
"A few."
"And how many of those are soldier class?"
Duet frowns.
"And how many of those are harmonized?"
"I've had enough of this."
"Hardly the lively debate one hopes for, but I accept your surrender."
Duet walks away without saying goodbye. Vesper trudges after, but cannot help turning one last time.
"But you don't do that any more, do you? Kill the children, I mean."
No, not any more. The uncivil is gone, my only source of animating essence with her.
What could I possibly gain from further experiments?
I don't know. She raises a finger skyward.
Exactly. I'm as fond of the little rascals as you are of your pet. I enjoy the company, so I keep them on. It gives me something to do.
She looks past Vesper's shoulder.
Now you'd best be moving on. Your friend has already got a head start.
Vesper nods.
I'll miss you.
If she survives, bring her back with you.
I will.
And if she doesn't, anything you can retrieve would be invaluable to my research.
But if she dies, what would be the point?
The future. One must always have an eye on the future.
Through the ever-open doors comes the hulking form of Gutterface. Samael watches it shuffle into the room, saggy bulk blocking the exit. Tiny infernals clamber all over it like children, like parasites, sitting in folds of skin and the curls of old wounds, perching on shoulders and hip bones. Samael notes how comfortable the infernals seem together, essence purring and self-satisfied. He tightens his grip on his sword as other facts come to him, adding up to trouble. Gutterface and its children come without a guide. That means it has been to the demagogue's court before. He looks between the Gutterface and the demagogue, positioned either side of him and Hangnail, like the jaws of a trap. The demagogue pulls its finger from the girl's head, and she goes slack. All eyes follow the too long digit as it rises, turns, and descends upon the bald skull of the young man next to her. He jolts awake, lips pulled back in a smile so wide that skin cracks around his lips.
Welcome, Gutterface! Welcome!
The lips move, giving voice to the demagogue's thoughts.
The gathering gathers size and is nearly complete. Just one more to come, and then...
The man stops talking, his face a smiling mask, frozen. Samael sees all the little eyes peering at him from the nooks and crannies of Gutterface's body. He looks at the lesser creatures of the court and finds hunger in their eyes as well, identical. At his side, Scout growls. Hangnail is the first to crack. The lone infernal stretches out its arms, casts open the coat of skins. Hooks emerge, curling and sharp along its edge. They blur over the pink-skinned cat sitting by its feet, spearing it. A single shriek gets out before hooks strip the skin away with fluid ease, tucking it away to be added later. A skeleton slops onto the floor, muscle and blood steaming red. The demagogue's finger comes sharply away from the young man's head, which flops forward and finds its way to the skull of the third figure on the bench. He animates at the touch, beard bristling, and his mouth foams as he shouts storm-like,
Hang the hangnail! Tear it! Make me ribbons!
As one, the court swarms towards Hangnail. In answer, the infernal opens its coat wide, like a pair of ragged wings or the lips of a giant mouth. Hooks glisten and twitch, ready to strike as the demagogue's forces attack, small shapes flying forward, snarling and unfolding, all teeth and claws and bile. It is more a scrum than a battle. Gutterface points its arms towards Hangnail, and its children cheer, pouring out of their hiding places to skip towards the beleaguered infernal. Samael cannot see Hangnail now for the sheer weight of enemies between them. Even if they work together, they have no chance of victory. It is time to go. He rushes for the door, sword drawn, Scout keeping pace, but Gutterface still blocks the door. Samael turns his shoulder, speeds up. Rotten flesh shudders with the impact, but Gutterface doesn't move. Samael swings his sword, trying to cut his way to freedom. The blade slips easily through the meat of the shoulder, cracking bone underneath. He pulls back for another strike, but his sword is reluctant to leave, stuck fast in the festering flesh. Gutterface strikes him in the chest, and he sails backwards, limbs trailing after, sword clattering to the floor. His head slams against the curving wall opposite, and lines splinter across the glass, radiating out. His view flickers like two pictures superimposed, sickening. Through the confusion, he senses Scout's rage, and as he focuses on it, he sees Gutterface from the Dogspawn's perspective. Then it is gone, his mind lurching back and forth, in one place, in another, in both. He is by the wall, head resting in the new dent he has made. He is leaping through the air, jaws open and angry. He is by the wall, trying to stand straight. He is tearing at Gutterface, watching innards spill like beans from a torn bag. He is upright, testing his limbs. There is a crack and a yelp. He is in pain, but not true pain. Sanity returns, hard and welcome. Scout lands nearby, panting heavily. He glances over at the living hill of madness that has buried Hangnail. Creatures crawl over each other, clawing, biting. Gutterface's offspring on top, stabbing into the mass of wriggling bodies with abandon. If Hangnail still struggles beneath them, he cannot tell. Soon they will be done, and then it will be his turn. He is without a weapon, hopelessly outnumbered and overpowered. He charges again. Gutterface turns toward him, careful to leave no opening. The distance between them shrinks. Samael's essence is a mix of many powerful things, an exceptional lineage packed with buried secrets, but knowledge and history are nothing next to the strength of a pure infernal. Gutterface knows this, and is confident. Samael knows this also. That is why he diverts at an angle, passing the giant demon, throwing himself at a thinner section of glassy wall. He hits a metal-plated ram, shattering the wall of the chamber, flying through a second pane and back into the corridor. Glass rains around him, stained and sharp. A second sense warns him to move, and he does so. An ugly sidewards roll. Scout lands in the space. Through their link he senses the Dogspawn's pain and something else. Pride, perhaps? Scout raises his head towards Samael, sword held between his jaws. Samael nods, impressed, sharing his pride between them, warming. Then he stands up, takes back his blade, and starts to run, nuggets of glass crunching underfoot. All of the demagogue's forces are occupied behind them, leaving the corridor mercifully clear of infernals, and while Gutterface is powerful, it is not quick. They're out of sight before the infernal has turned itself round. Ahead of them, a young man kneels. Samael recognizes him as the exhibit who tried to speak to him before. The man's actions are slow and ritualized, tickling memories. On impulse, Samael slows down. "My name is Jem. I invoke the right of mercy. Save me, protect me, deliver me." Scout races past him, tongue hanging out to one side, absorbed in the run. Samael tries to do the same, but his feet have stopped. The man's words fill his head, loud as cannon fire, echoing. Echoing. A staccato flash of memories, other places, other voices, the same words, charged with purpose. Back in the present, he sways. The man called Jem is unmoving before him. "Up," he says, in his dusky voice. Jem stands up, and Samael stares, trying to understand why he feels the need to help this stranger. Scout bounds back into view, barking at them. He is concerned for his master, keen for him to hurry. He is right to be. Behind them there is a great roar, a score of animal throats opening together, followed by the sound of tearing flesh. Hangnail has fallen. Scout barks again. Jem pulls at Samael's arm. He sees rather than feels the contact. Then he starts to move. The motion is sluggish at first, as if his body were far away and the dangers even further. He knows their end is coming, is tempted to face it rather than flee, to take some of the filth out of the world before he goes. Instead, Jem and the dog spawn urging him on, he speeds up. Together they run. Following them down the corridor come the words of the demagogue, carried by the voice of the big man, booming.
Bring me the ashling! Bring it! Bring me all of its pieces!
Chapter 15. Duet and Vesper stand amid piles of rubble. Size is the only indicator of what made them. The smaller ones, private dwellings or storage pods. The larger ones, byproducts of communal hives and industrial structures. Each makes a modest hill, piled neatly and surrounded by bushes, green leaves tipped with white fuzz. Vesper holds out the nav pack, an image projecting by her feet. According to this, we're in the right place. It's marked as an active settlement. It's out of date. Yes, like the others were. Yes, sorry. Duet scowls. Stop apologizing. This isn't your fault. The girl catches herself and smiles, self-conscious. Okay. Meanwhile, the kid sniffs at the cottony fuzz on the leaves. Risks are weighed up, options considered. An experimental bite is taken. Duet sits down on one of the smaller piles and begins rifling through the bag. The nav pack is powered down, returned to Vesper's pocket. What are we going to do now? I'm going to have a pill. Another one. I told you, they help with the pain. But, she protests, crossing over to the harmonized, those ones aren't even pain meds. I know. We're out of pain meds. So what are they? Uppers. She folds her arms, but, despite the urge to push Vesper away, finds herself explaining. They don't make the pain go away. They just make it not matter so much. You told me the pain was nearly gone. It has. Nearly. She pops 2 tablets, one red, one purple. Anyway, it's done now. I don't like it. It's done. Leave it. Vesper watches the kid stripping the leaves with enthusiasm. What we need is food. Duet turns her attention to the kid as well. Agreed. No, I mean we need to hunt for some. Do you know how to hunt? A little. My father showed me once, but he wasn't very good at it, and it was a long time ago. I don't remember much. Not much is more than I've got. What do we need? A place where animals go. A trap and some good bait. Duet keeps her eyes on the kid. I think I know where we can get the bait. The girl's stomach growls, scaring off the guilt. I suppose if he wasn't in any real danger, it would be okay. Oblivious, the kid keeps chewing. Samael, Scout, and Jem huddle in one of the many abandoned sections of the demagogue's palace. In the darkness, tucked within the ruins of a fallen tower joined by bridge to the main structure, they watch for their pursuers. Each time the wind blows, walls shudder and floors creak like a man moaning before death. From their hiding place they see a gaggle of hunters arrive, small and feral and quick. Without pause, the infernal horde leave the relative safety of the demagogue's palace, spilling out onto the half-finished bridge to the tower. Samael steps into view, drawing enthusiastic shrieks. Jaws slaver and barbs extend as they rush towards him. He draws his sword, makes 2 heavy cuts. With a ping, the cables holding the bridge fall away, stripping out the structure's spine. Shrieks turn quickly to wails as the bridge crumples, tin tissue paper folding about them like a heavy shroud. Samael counts each time they bounce off a wall, marking the crunches and the way the screams change pitch. He finds the sound satisfying. Infernals at the other end of the bridge struggle to stop. One teeters on the edge, feathered arms making desperate circles in the air. A small face appears at its shoulder, black eyes glinting malice, one of Gutterface's children. It reaches out slowly until its small hands touch the infernal's back. It savours the moment, then pushes, siblings leaning forward to watch the infernal tumble, wings flapping, useless. When the show is over, the eyes all raise to glare at Samael. He glares back. Then, at some unseen signal, they pull back as one, leaving the corridor suddenly empty. Jem appears at his side and speaks. Samael cannot recall the last time he has heard a voice so human. His long association with demons giving the man's words a false softness. "Where will we go?" "Wherever we go, they will find me. My essence is known to them." "Can't we hide?" Inspiration bubbles from within. Secrets passed from the uncivil to his creator, and now to him. Sometimes it feels as if his creator still pulls the strings from deep inside, that his own will is but a scab on the wound made by their deaths. It will only prolong the agony. Jem's hands begin to shake. You promised you would help me." "They are not after you. Run now, while you can." "And then what? Run where? To who?" Samael stares at him, unmoved. "You swore an oath." Did he? He does not remember, and yet he feels it somehow, words that bind as surely as any chains. "Yes. But first you must do something for me." Jem nods, sagging a little, disappointed but not surprised. "Yes." He points down at his feet. There is a pause, and then Jem sinks to his knees in front of the half-breed. "Yes." Samael lifts his right foot, raising it level with the man's chest. "Help me get my boot off." "What?" "Take off my boot." Jem shrugs and sets to work. While Jem's head is bowed, Samael grips at ruined brickwork, steadying himself. Scout begins to whine softly, and Samael wonders if the dog-spawn senses his own misgivings at what is to be done. Pushing such thoughts to one side, he raises his sword, bringing it down past Jem's head and into the exposed flesh of his foot. The kid nibbles at a pile of leaves. Around his neck is an old piece of rubber tubing, tethering him to a stake. He does not care about his lack of freedom, fully focused on the task at hand. Several plastic sheets are staked out around the kid, an uneven square of grey, daubed with glue. Further out, behind a mound of stones, Duet and Vesper watch. The harmonized grits her teeth.
This isn't going to work. We have to be patient. That's what my Uncle Harm always says. If we're patient, the world will come to us.
She stands up.
Your uncle talks a lot of crap.
Vesper mutters a reply, just loud enough to not be audible, as Duet crosses to their trap. With ease, she hops over the plastic, landing next to the kid. He glances up, and she draws her sword. Vesper gasps. The kid goes back to chewing. "Don't!" calls Vesper, half standing in surprise. Her sword licks the young goat across his flank. The kid screams, a thin stream of blood running down his side. Duet hops back and returns to where Vesper gawps.
What did you do that for?
To speed things up. They go back to waiting while the kid alternates between screaming, bleeding, and shooting dark looks in their direction.
Sorry,
whispers Vesper, ignoring Duet's exaggerated sigh. Fresh scents and shouts of distress carry far, however, and before long an interested party arrives. Vesper sees it first, pointing with enthusiasm. A rat the size of a large dog approaches, with horns for eyes and whiskers thick as baby's fingers. Its fur is dark, its feet a raw pink with a tail to match. Despite its appearance, Vesper's mouth begins to water. It stops just in front of the plastic sheets, sniffing the air, cautious. An unknown smell stands between it and food. Slowly it walks the perimeter, feet well clear of the treated plastic. The kid tries to get away from it, bleating unhappiness, but the tubing holds it close. Two creatures make two circles, one within the other. The movement squeezes a little fresh blood from the kid's wound, and the rat stands on its hind legs, whiskers twitching with excitement.
Come on,
Duet whispers. The kid pulls away harder, stretching rubber, legs a flurry, fighting for every inch. While the stake is sturdy, it is not planted deep, the ground too hard and dry for such things. The rat pauses. The stake begins to lean. Vesper can only watch, shaking her head as the kid pulls free, rolling backwards onto the plastic, where he stops, abrupt, stuck fast. The rat circles round to where the kid lies, stricken. Duet nudges Vesper.
Shoot it. What? Shoot it, right now. Shoot it.
Oh, she replies, fumbling for the pistol in her pocket. The rat leans out over the plastic, neck stretching, telescoping to add an extra foot to its reach. Long teeth nip at the kid's side. The kid screams, so does Vesper. The pistol is in her hand now. She points and fires, trying to be conservative, impressively off target. Unable to see the laser, the rat bites at the kid again, undaunted. Held on his back, legs stuck in the air, the kid is easy to catch. He cannot run, but he can kick. Feet flail, and a lucky hoof glances off the rat's skull. The tainted creature startles, one paw landing on the edge of the plastic sheet. Instantly the glue hardens, bonding one to the other. The rat lifts its paw, and the sheet rises with it. Frustrated, it waves the paw, like a frenzied fan meeting their idol. Duet breaks cover, starts to run. Vesper squeezes the trigger again. Nothing happens. She frowns, squeezes harder, but the pistol stays stubbornly silent. She looks back in time to see Duet stab the rat through the neck.
Finally!
The harmonized calls back.
A bit of luck!
Behind her, the kid's eyes narrow to black slits. He kicks out, hooves striking the backs of her knees. Duet's legs fly outward, and her body follows, a half-somersault, impromptu. She lands next to the kid, limbs spread like a star. For a moment, all three are shocked into silence. Duet recovers first.
Right, that's it!
She returns the kid's murderous look and reaches for her sword. However, the trap has other ideas, holding fast to her head, her back, her hips, her legs, and her arms. Vesper stares at the kid's legs, waving crazily, then at Duet, writhing and cursing. "Oh, I'll just... Laughter springs loud and unexpected, a force of nature. She drops the gun, clutching at her side.
Shut up!
Shouts Duet. The kid says something to the same effect. If anything, Vesper laughs louder, cheeks crimson with mirth, arms pressed to her sides. I'm sorry, she howls, bent double, and then she says no more, laughing and laughing, drowning out the threats and the shouts until Duet finds herself joining in. The kid does not understand. He kicks at Duet, but cannot reach her. Dark eyes narrow, plotting revenge. It is easy to make space for the fire. Rubble is abundant, the smaller chunks used to outline the fire pit, the larger ones turned into makeshift shelter to hold back the worst of the winds. Finding fuel for the fire is more difficult. Wood is scarce, forcing Vesper to manage with foraged scraps, abandoned pieces of clothing, of furniture, too damp to burn well. They make do. Vesper blows gently onto the fire, wincing as the flame flickers away before gasping back to life. Duet wrestles with the corpse of a giant rat, skinning it with all the skill of a rank amateur. Chunks of flesh are wasted with the skin, piling up at her feet